as Global College sponsor for this event.
Saan ka man ngayon, dinala ng pagkakataon, nag-iisang humarap sa hamon, at hindi uurong. Kahit nasa malayo ka, saan mang panig ng daigdig, tinig mo'y makakarating. Pakikinggan ang iyong hiling, ang tinig Pinoy, karamay mo. Kahit saang dako ng mundo, isang mithiin, isang hangarin, marinig ang tinig natin. Ugali natin kinagisnan, mula nooy nagtutulungan. Pilipino ay nagkakaisa, sa ibang bansa ay magkakasama. Isigaw sa buong mundo, nang marinig ang tinig mo. Tinig natin ay pagsasamahin, tagumpay ay magkakamit. Ang tinig Pinoy, karamay mo. Kahit saang dako ng mundo, isang mithiin, isang hangarin, marinig ang tinig natin. Ugali nating kinagisnan, mula nooy nagtutulungan. Pilipino ay nagkakaisa, sa ibang bansa ay magkakasama.
Or if you are interested, please drop by our booth and I will be so happy to assist you. Thank you so much, FCNC.
Thank you very much. And of course, RLC is here. RLC is giving away this cute teddy bear. This teddy bear, the very cute. Ayun, you guys can just visit their booth right over here and inquire. Of course, having a property in the Philippines is indeed an amazing. Okay, next sponsor natin. Walang pang tao dito, so we will just come back sa kumakain pa yata. But they do wedding photography, events, marketing, which is really nice. Ang ganda ng mga pictures dito. So I think maraming salamat for the sponsorship. The group was around here taking the videos and photos. So just a request, kunin nyo na yung good side ko, ha? Huwag na yung bad side, which is not any side. Okay, we got our favorite booth right here. And next sponsor we have is definitely one of our platinum sponsor at the back, which is RBC. Give a big round of applause for RBC. Yes. Michelle is here. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, FCNC. How's everyone doing today? Awesome. So like what I said from our welcome party last night, we're very privileged to be your platinum sponsor for this year. Together with me, my name is Michelle Baladan, Group Advisor for RBC Group Advantage. I have our partners with me, Tina, Betty, for newcomers, team from RBC.
Here are the Wasalako.
Small business.
Say hi.
Joyce Patensa for
So guys, you're live on live streaming in the clinic live.
Video Spy, our Trinidad mortgage specialist, and Jeanette Marcos, investment retirement planner. So we are here to give you financial literacy.
Yeah, this is.
Anything that you need from us, let us know. We do have a photo.
This is Sachi Regina.
I received today. Plus, we have $500 Western.
This buy.
Which buy So
Look at the man.
Need it, just sign up. We have Thank you so much, FCNC.
Thank you very much for sponsoring the FCNC annual
Merci beaucoup.
convention and gala. We'll see each other tonight. I think you guys are ready to party.
À la
Are you guys ready to
prochaine.
party tonight? Okay,
See you
we are.
next year.
Okay. So, again, just to recap, you're entitled
Your
to
life hack.
This is Mayor Jane Napolitano. I am the treasurer of FCNC, and I also am an educator and a business owner myself. So this is our products. This are Filipino bilingual books. This is our company, Creative Minds. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting.
Thank you very much, RBC. They got their phone group here. You guys can check them out. Thank you. Now, we're heading to Sarvin Insurance and Travel Agency. Just so you know, you guys want to travel, you guys want to enjoy, and of course, you guys are serving. The word
Sorry, you're left.
everything you do for the community, you need to take a break and go places. That's right. And I have here Vince.
Sir.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Mary from Sarvin Travel.
Ako naman, asan ka pa?
You can call us. We also offer promo fares.
Hilig Pinoy.
Various airlines. You can call us. All of our promos we uploaded in Facebook account, Sarvin Facebook account. You can check our promos, our updated packages, tours, group tours. Just check our Facebook account or call us, call our office. And I will turn you to the most beautiful boss of Sarvin.
Say hi, Hilig Pinoy Radio, Ottawa.
At Sarvin
From Yukon.
Insurance Agency, we can help you with all insurance needs, from auto, business, house insurance, commercial, even your travel insurance. So anything you need with regards to insurance, please call Sarvin Insurance Agency. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much for supporting FCNC. Of course, again, for travel needs, and look, wait.
Hilig Pinoy, Ottawa.
Clinic Pinoy.
Ito na.
What's up?
Everybody's talking about traveling and taking a break from winter na. So it's time for us to get away.
Please buy and support our FCNC.
Also, we have great destinations in the Philippines.
Wala ko naalala, utak ko pala.
Siargao and or I'm going to move on to this side again. I just wondered where these guys went, but they're back.
Yeah. Hilig Pinoy, Ottawa. Pinoy Radio. Yeah.
Okay. They're our sponsor for video and photography here for our FCNC, and they have John here, John and Blue. John and Blue. So guys, what is this start?
Hilig Pinoy, Ottawa. Radio station. Yeah, Hilig Pinoy, Ottawa.
Isa from Winnipeg.
We actually also want to consider the conference program for the future. So I will turn
Hilig Pinoy, Ottawa. Radio station.
So we do a lot of events around the city, especially festivals and markets. So recently we did the Street Feast Festival, as mentioned by me earlier. That was a very successful turnout. It's a celebration of food, culture, and community. And we warmly invite you to come next year sometime in the middle of August. But which is it's a community market, and there will be local trucks, stalls, and so on and so forth. So we invite you to check that out. And stick around, we'll be there as well. They will be performing. So, the market is high for personal events, to do harvest, birthdays, baptisms, anniversaries, anything that sort, and we offer a package of different services, including photography and videography. Thank you very much. Let's go along the ground.
Radio station in Ottawa. Inig Pinoy. RLC. May malaki pa kayong RLC dyan. Kaya, kaya.
Good afternoon. We're from RLC Residences, all the way from the Philippines. Please support our company. We offer no down payment terms for as low as 11,000 only per month, 11,000 pesos per month only.
Nice.
You can get a chance to own your own condominium unit in the Philippines.
Thank you.
Go. You guys can check their services out and book your weddings. You want to get married, you want to get hitched, go book your life. All right, we're moving to this side of the room, and we got FCNC merch down here. Ladies and gentlemen, FCNC merch. We got the FCNC souvenir. We got T-shirts, hoodies, and some mugs. Okay. Papakita ko lang sa iyo. There you go. This is our FCNC shirts. You guys can check it out.
Okay.
And we got our mugs here.
Ano, okay na to?
Stainless steel tumblers.
Maraming pa lang.
Really great. Wow.
Maraming pa lang?
Okay, pasok pa sa books.
Pero nakalive pa lang.
Okay pa na. Okay, and you got some things. And you got the hoodies. Yes. Starting to get cold. You want to get warm? Grab a FCNC hoodie. And very affordable for everybody. Okay. Last but not the least, we're going to move here to the Filipino bilingual host that I've got my co-host tonight, Mary Jane. Yes, Mary Jane. Who's gonna? Mary Jane, gentlemen. Okay, let's talk about the bilingual voice. Okay.
Hello everyone, magandang hapon po sa lahat. Kamusta naman? Hinihiling na ating mga anak na si Director Rachel Barada. Alright, so this is we are also business owners. And I have the executive chat. Of course, Jeff Simpson, Kai, and myself, Energy Naputaro. We own this company, Creative Minds. This is our third year of running this small business. This is where we write Filipino bilingual books. We also have some flashcards that are very, very useful for our Filipino bilingual children. We know that language is tied up with our identity, and we do not like to lose that. It's very important for us to know that our own children is self-identified. So some of the books that we have, of course, we started actually with 5 books. Now we already have 7. There's 3 more coming before the end of the year. And also our books are truly inspired here in Manitoba. So I hope that you can bring not just a souvenir, but a tool that would empower your family, special children, in teaching the beautiful Filipino language. And I'll give the microphone to my co-author, Andrelita.
Yeah, so everything is right. Because I kept on telling this, once we know the language, it will be easy for us to learn our culture. Yes. Because when we know how to speak and to read, and that's the time that we will be able to know exactly our culture and our heritage. So if you have time, then come and see our books and our things. Preserve our language to our generations to come.
Correct. Maraming
Thank you very much, Jen and Mary Jane. Now, I only have a list of sponsors that are here this afternoon. Do we still have time? Do we still have time? Okay, we still got five more minutes. Yeah, I've been 5 more minutes. And of course, we'd like to thank our DJ, Ronnie. DJ Ronnie Delagana, Soundtech DJ Ronnie Delagana, maraming salamat. And summer sponsors that are here this afternoon. Okay, some of the sponsors that are here this afternoon, you don't have a booth, but you're here. Can you raise your hand and I'll go and approach you guys? Some of the sponsors that are. We got Pastor Butch with CCM, Press Commission Fellowship, one of our sponsors. Right. Pastor Butch, can you tell us more about CCM?
CCM is family center. We always want to promote unity in the family through humility and selflessness. It is a Christ-like attitude, aiming to embrace and show our children and our spouse who we are, because we need to be able to show them that through modeling as well as strengthening our family. We want to start out with parents early being asked by virtue, when you are thinking, how can I improve? I think that's the key thing that we can do at home. Advocating for our children as well. We could model our parents, give us a chance to being authentic, critical, and sometimes.
Thank you very much, Pastor Bruce. Please we have one of our sponsors for the third annual convention on FCNC, and I'm looking for Kelly. Is Kelly here? You guys know Kelly? You guys know her? Where's Kelly? Anyone? Clearly, because Kelly is a bit shy. She's a bit shy. She really doesn't like to talk. She's very, what do you call this? Sustainability. Reserved. And then it's your turn to try. Anyways, tell us more about tell us more about and of course the program that you guys are going to be in Portugal and absolutely the main international that group requires to be in that sort of event.
We're live in Ottawa.
Hello.
Ottawa.
Thank you for watching live. We hope that you're here with us. And thanks to technology, we are so close to each other. Thank you very much for everyone who attended the third annual Leadership Convention National Gala for the Filipino-Canadian National Congress. So let's talk about the performance that you have witnessed. So there's 11 from our school, actually, our white. 13 athletes, young martial arts athletes from Manila. And out of the 13, 11 came from our school, from the Winnipeg Academy. So as the introduction was mentioned earlier, our school has been in existence for 20 years. So through the years, our program has been athletic. We test and challenge our students to compete in tournaments. And it so happened that their skills are way up there, and now to become official delegates of Canada to the World Ranking Championships. So this is actually the fourth or third time that we have been a part of being Canada. And I myself is one of the national coaches under the World Ranking Championships. So yeah, it doesn't show what yes I am. So, to make it short, the 11 kids are competing in different events, like the sports, family, team fighting, and then even open team war. So if you had witnessed the performance earlier, there was a portion there that there were 4 battles to perform. That segment actually was the first national delegate for the event. And every event has a financial equivalent. Per event is 90 euros. So 90 euros is about $110 million. So we need your help. We need your help in praying for their help and also any donation will go a long way. So, that's all I can say. I can talk more. Oh, and one more thing to be proud of. The youngest male competitor in all over Canada came from our school, came from Manitoba, and that is Adel Rangasan. How old are you?
How old are you? You're 8?
There you go.
I'm 9. Hey, ito naman kami 8. Kaya thank you very much. And of course, let's get together. Let's put our resources together and help our community in the worship God. Are you guys excited about the worship?
All the us.
Yes. All right. Awesome. Okay. Guys, it's amazing. Your performance was great. All right. All right. Continue to do what we do. It's like what
Ottawa.
Wow.
Live in Ottawa. Radio station.
our sponsors. I expect to. So I'm going over to our afternoon MC. Thank you very much, guys. My name is Chris Rock, and later on tonight, me and Mary Jane will be hosting a gala night, and we will party.
Ano, ako na. Papatong ko na dito.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, just an important announcement. While going around the room, if you see those photo exhibit right at the back here, the back end on your far left, if you guys can go and take a look at them, and that is the photo exhibit of Manamo, archipelagic states, which is identity, consciousness, and law. So please go around and take a picture and see the photo booth and yeah, get more educated about Manamo. And later on, we will hear more about it with some of our key speakers this afternoon. And also, ladies and gentlemen, we will start our afternoon program at 1:30. So if you can please go back to your seats, and we've got 5 more minutes to go as we enjoy the afternoon program. And later on tonight, once again, we will have our gala night for everybody to enjoy. You will see the FCNC dance team performing tonight.
The bed is not here yet. I just bought the bags and t-shirt last night. Everything, everything. That one would be my daughter's. If that's my son, the other one is my daughter. What is it? Mom. And there's a name. Are you buying it? Extra bags. My son. That bag is mine. But also a bag because I do. But it's in that. You can take that one. Yeah. Yeah, because there were two, I took one. So you can take this one. Yeah, I mean, they're gonna. Why waste it? I could go and make. Yeah. You can go say, no, they recognize you. Yeah. They don't need very much. But I'm looking for you. Yeah, I went to the So I saw that email. So you are adding one more foot to the living room.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can I have your attention, please? In 1 minute, we will begin the afternoon session. Can I request everyone to please go back to your seats now?
Half done. Oh, I see. Okay.
Hello? Are you there?
Yeah,
Still alive? Very good. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen at the back, can I request everyone to please go back to your tables now? We will begin in 1 minute. In fact, we are about to begin.
But if you want to,
At 1:30,
so you want to
make
get.
use of our
But I
time. Early. I'd like to request everyone to please go back to your seats now, get settled, and we're ready for another exciting session this afternoon.
Okay, so maybe after 3.
Can I request some volunteers from our organizing team to usher our friends at the back to please request them to return to their seats?
So I think they will be there when it is. Huh? I'm at the Victoria in the conference over here. But at the variety last night, बहुत अच्छा program थी तब शाम को concert थी बहुत अच्छी and one of the best DJs. हाँ, मुझे पापा को information है कि अलग DJ
All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Are you there? And here's some big claps over there, just to see if everyone is ready. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a fantastic and energizing lunch. And for those of you just joining us this afternoon, I'm Jerry K. Coy, founding director representing Alberta of the Filipino-Canadian National Congress and the assistant secretary of FCNC. And I'll be your host for this afternoon's exciting plenary session. Before we formally dive into the afternoon session, allow me to share a brief recap of the action-packed morning session. This morning, our event convention was opened by our very own host, Winnipeg, Vice President of FCNC, Jeneline Tan. Jeneline stressed the power of connecting, building friendships, and empowering others to foster unity and creative positive change. And also, this morning was nothing short of remarkable, with the warm welcome remarks from our national president, Eddie Villarta from Ontario, who shared his vision for the future of FCNC and the crucial role we play in uplifting and supporting our community. Eddie focused on learning, connecting with others, and inspiring through shared experiences to create a supportive and motivating community. We also had inspiring messages from leaders at three levels of government. MP Kevin Lamoureux shared his ongoing commitment to the Filipino-Canadian community. He noted Filipinos placing their right hand on their chest during the national anthem as a sign of patriotism, celebrating this as a reflection of Canada's cultural diversity and unity. Also, we have MLA Julene de la Cruz, representing the province of Manitoba, highlighting the Bayanihan spirit as a means for change, urging youth to drive progress through collective action and unity in leadership and civic activities. Then we started with our plenary session. Starting with our first guest speaker this morning, Senator Osler, a distinguished voice in the Senate and a champion for public health. She shared invaluable insights on the health and safety of the elderly, offering a proactive approach to ensure that our seniors live healthier and more fulfilling lives. Her work has been instrumental in addressing the challenges faced by the elderly in Canada, and I'm sure her perspectives has
Everybody's
been
busy with somebody, something.
for all of us.
If I would have
After
speak,
that,
if
we
I would have
heard
speak,
from
I would have
MP
speak
Richie
anymore.
Valdez. As a trailblazer in the political arena, one of the rising stars in Canadian politics and is breaking barriers as Filipino woman in government. MP Valdez touched on entrepreneurship and its impact on developing Filipino-Canadian entrepreneurs. Her journey is an inspiring one, and her perspective have resonated with us leaders and entrepreneurs alike. And for our third plenary this morning, we're thrilled to have Tina Balondendres. Tina shared her success story as an entrepreneur under the theme Empowered to Lead. She has built a thriving business empire from the ground up, and her story is a testament to the power of perseverance, passion, and hard work. If you're looking for some entrepreneurial inspiration, she is what you're looking for. And of course, this event would have not been possible without the support of our generous sponsor, Lin and Lou, our major sponsor. Your contributions to this event are deeply appreciated, and your commitment to the community is truly commendable. And let's not forget the incredible performance by the Winnipeg Sikaran Academy. Their talent and dedication to the art of Sikaran is an inspiration to all and across the world. Of course, I hope you all have enjoyed the sumptuous lunch as well. It was fantastic time to connect, share stories, and recharge for the rest of the day. All right, everyone. Before we jump into the afternoon plenary sessions, let me give you a sneak peek of what we have in store for you this afternoon. I promise you it's going to be informative, engaging, and truly relevant to the strengthening of Filipino communities across Canada. This afternoon, we'll be diving into topics that matter not just to us as leaders, but to our families, our communities, and to the future we're all building together. These discussions are designed to empower us with the knowledge, tools, and inspiration to make real lasting changes in our lives and in the lives of those we serve. So let's keep that energy going, stay engaged, and make the most of these incredible speakers and sessions. We'll also have an open Q&A at the end of each session, so be ready to ask your speakers or our speakers with your burning questions. And I guarantee you that you'll walk away with fresh ideas and new perspectives that will inspire you to make a greater impact in your community. Without further ado, let me call our first speaker. To introduce our first speaker for this afternoon, let's give a big round of applause to our FCNC Board of Director from British Columbia, Trini Lopez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our esteemed guests, sponsors, performers, members, and supporters of FCNC. First of all, I would like to congratulate and thank our wonderful Manitoba team led by Jeneline Tan, Mary Jane Napolitano, Arlene Evangelista, for welcoming us in Winnipeg. This truly is friendly Manitoba. Now I know the secret is the people. Let me also greet Manitoba on its 150th birthday and the 75th year of Philippine-Canada relations. My name is Trini Lopez, one of the FCNC founders of DOD founding directors from the BC. It's an honor to introduce our speaker, Ambassador Maria Andrelita, Austria. Mrs. Austria has been a public servant since 1986 and a career diplomat since 1992. On 28th of March last year, she assumed her role as the Ambassador of Philippines to Canada. Mrs. Austria served as Consul General of the Philippine Consulate in Vancouver from June 2018. She was Assistant Secretary for American Affairs at the Department of Foreign Affairs from Manila from June 2014 to mid-June 2018. She also served as Deputy Chief of Mission at the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. from April 2009 to May 2014. Prior to this, she was detailed to the Office of the President as Deputy Presidential Assistant for Foreign Affairs from September 2007 to April 2009. Since joining the DFA in 1992, she has worked on both policy and consular issues, primarily focusing on ASEAN, Southeast Asia, the Pacific, and the Americas. For her significant contributions to the Philippine Foreign Service, she was conferred the Presidential Order of Lakandula by President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo and the Gawad Lumini Award by the Secretary of Foreign Affairs in 2008. In 2016, she received the Presidential Medal of Merit from President Benigno S. Aquino III. Ambassador Austria holds a postgraduate diploma in International Relations and Development from the Institute of Social Studies in The Hague, the Netherlands. She earned a bachelor's degree in International Studies cum laude from Maryknoll College in the Philippines.
She is married to Carlito Eduardo Austria, an engineer currently Chief Executive Officers of RGE Agri Development Corporation, and they are blessed with 3 daughters, Patricia, Abigail, and Gabriel, a son of Cole, and 2 grandsons, Theo and Brand, of which she's so proud of having her new role as the grandma. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present Ambassador Andrelita, Austria. Thank you, Tri, my good friend, for the very generous introduction. Sa mga miyembro at liderato ng Filipino-Canadian National Congress, mga kababayan, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. It's really very challenging to be speaking after lunch and after such an energetic set of speakers for this morning, but I will do my best. I would like to start by congratulating FCNC for the 3rd Annual Leadership Convention. To underscore the firm support that we are extending, we are also joined today by all 3 Consuls Generals of the Philippines in Canada, Consul Angelica Escalon of Toronto, Consul General Pauline Mango of Vancouver, and Consul General Emma Smarting of Calgary, as well as the Deputy Head of Mission at the Philippine Embassy, Micah Fisher, and of course, the very well-loved Honorary Consul Juan Pina. Alam niyo po, as Trini mentioned, I've been in Canada since 2018. And I have always heard about the growing number of Filipinos in Canada. Manghang-mangha po sila sa numbers natin, that there's so many of us here. But when I came, I've served in the US for 2 terms. So when I came, my first question was, nasan yung mga Filipino Doctors Association, Filipino Nurses Association, the PICPA Association? Because in the US, like in my last post in Washington, D.C., meron po tayong Filipino doctors from UST, Filipino doctors from UP, UPRM. Yung Accountants Association, lagi kong dalawa. The one affiliated with PICPA and a local one. So I often wondered, how come it's different here? How come I don't see that kind of organizations? But at the same time, in everywhere I've been, I have often been told, ang galing-galing ng mga Filipino. In fact, in 2 recent visits, in my visit to Ontario, the Premier told me that if I could bring a plane load, an empty plane to the Philippines, and fill it with Filipinos, I will do it. Because Filipinos are very valuable workers, they contribute a lot to society. In Halifax, the mayor told us, 1 Filipino is equivalent to 2.1 workers. Hindi ko alam ba't may 0.1. But he said, every Filipino is equivalent to 2.1 workers.
They're sending money to the Philippines. They have to earn money.
Your contribution is very much valued and appreciated. Earlier, Senator Osler and Eddie said that Winnipeg is Canada's best-kept secret. I respectfully disagree. I think the Filipino-Canadian community is Canada's best-kept secret. You are very much valued and appreciated, but not seen or heard. I see all of you here and I see pictures of success. But I'm willing to bet that all of you had to encounter the proverbial glass ceiling. Hindi po naging madali na magkarating kayo kung nasaan kayo ngayon. And basically, the main problem is the fact that your academic and professional credentials na pinaghirapan niyo po ng gusto, hindi po nire-recognize dito sa Canada. So this issue of credentials recognition is something that the Philippine government has been working on, and I can say in all honesty, as early as 2016. We have been making representations sa lahat na po ng taong kinausap namin, every time we go, everywhere we go, all the delegations will speak about when we are asked, what do you want? Credentials, recognition po ang unang sagot. So I am happy to know that there have been some progress. In Nova Scotia, for example, internationally educated nurses from 7 jurisdictions, including the Philippines, are eligible for an expedited pathway to registration and licensure if they pass the NCLEX. Dito po sa Manitoba, the government in 2022 or 2023 sent a recruitment mission to the Philippines and brought back 100 nurses. Kala niyo po ba meron silang dadala na nurse na ngayon?
No.
Karamihan po nung dinala nila student nurse, LPN, or HCA. Kahit po yung iba doon sa nakausap natin, may master's degree galing sa Amerika. Bakit po ganon? Di po ba? Lagi po lang tinatanong sa kanila, iba po ba ang kulay ng dugo ng Canadian?
Yes.
Yes.
Or ang puso po ba ay nasa kaibayang lugar? And many are surprised when I say
Misplaced.
that in the US, when after you take the NCLEX, a Filipino can be a nurse tomorrow if they pass the NCLEX. And more importantly, the NCLEX is the same exam that Canadians take. So, but we understand that there are differences. So we are very mindful of trying to see how we can work around those differences and help. So as I said, we've seen some success, like in Halifax. Alberta is also doing the same. And in Alberta, it's 9 jurisdictions instead of 7, but also including the Philippines. In our meeting with the Manitoba Health Department officials yesterday, we were also pleasantly surprised to learn that there is an expedited pathway for doctors, but not yet for nurses. So clearly, provinces across Canada are working with their collegial regulatory bodies, and other provinces and their own collegial bodies to develop ways to attract and improve retention of their nurses, including internationally educated workers. Pero may isa pa po kaming suggestion na ginagawa ngayon. We realize Canada's challenges with regards to temporary workers, with regards to trying to manage the number of temporary residents coming to Canada. At the same time, tayo din po sa Pilipinas, may pangangailangan din po tayo ng healthcare workers. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to urge the Canadian government to focus on the Philippine educated nurses who are already here. We're asking them, do not send recruitment missions to the Philippines. Focus on those who are already here and are not working as nurses. So the favorite story I like to tell is that when I arrived in Ottawa as ambassador, I was met by a gentleman from Global Affairs Canada who told me, my elderly parents are being cared for by 3 Filipina nurses. And in the back of my mind, said, ang yaman naman ito, 3 nurse, kaya niyang i-hire. It turns out that the 3 Filipina nurses he was referring to, he found them working at the Tim Hortons at the airport. So 3 Philippine registered nurses working at Tim Hortons at the airport. I have met Filipino nurses who are driving trucks. I have met Filipino nurses who are working in a Costco. The point we are trying to make is that there is a whole population of Filipino nurses licensed, experienced, but are not working in healthcare in Canada. Di po ba kulang na kulang sila? Yes. So what we are trying to do is we are putting together, we have, if you visit our website, we have a QR code for a survey of all Filipino nurses who are not working in healthcare in Canada. As of now, we have about 300 names. What we intend to do with these 300 names is that it will go through our internal process of vetting their licenses, and then we will give this list to provincial governments who would want to hire nurses from the Philippines. So sasabihin namin, you do not have to send missions to the Philippines. Here is a list of nurses who are already in Canada but are not working in healthcare. As I speak, 2 or 3 provinces have already requested for the list. So our appeal is if you know somebody who is a registered nurse in the Philippines but is not working in healthcare, please ask them to visit our website and get on the list. The list will be open, the survey will be open until the end of September, after which we will begin our processing and our outreach to the various provincial governments. So alam niyo po, mga kababayan, the Credentials Recognition Program and other such efforts to empower the community will only be successful if we work together. Hindi po kaya ng isang asosasyon, hindi po kaya ng isang probinsya, hindi po kaya ng isang gobyerno. Dapat po talaga pagtulong-tulungan po natin ito. We need to have a concerted outreach to your federal and provincial officials, hospitals, employers, and the broader Canadian public. We are not asking for any special favors. We are asking for fairness and equity in the evaluation of your degrees, licenses, and certifications. We are advocating for streamlined processes to allow you to make an even bigger contribution to Canada. When you are able to work in the fields you are trained for, you not only elevate your own lives, but also make a bigger and more effective contribution to both Canada and the Philippines. As FCNC, you are uniquely positioned to make a contribution in this effort. You come from different provinces, you are able to see what the best practices are in your provinces and share them with the others. So we encourage you to continue this dialogue, share your learnings with colleagues from other provinces, highlight best practices, and pitch this to your policymakers. We also need your voice and influence on another matter of critical importance to the Philippines, and this is on the matter of the South China Sea. May kwento lang po ako. When I was a young officer in 1995, meron pong isang maliit na low tide elevation. Ang tawag po natin Panganiban Reef, ang international name po, Mischief Reef. Low tide elevation po yung lumulubog pag high tide. Isa po siyang parang ring na gano'n. Nagtayo po ang China ng isang bahay grupo. Originally, pinapaalis po ng Philippine government. Ang sagot po sa atin, this is 1995. Napakalumbit nyo naman. Fisherman shelter lang yan. That is a fisherman shelter so that when our fishermen, the small boats, get caught in the storm, they have somewhere to stay. Alam niyo naman po ang mga Pilipino, mabait, maawain, pinabayaan natin. Ngayon po, ang Mischief Reef is more than 1,000 acres, hosting missile arsenals, aircraft hangars, radar systems, and other military facilities. Military base na po siya ng ibang bayan. So this afternoon, we would like to welcome you to the Manamo portion of this convention. It's a Maritime and Archipelagic Nation Awareness Month. Alam niyo po ba na meron pong parang 195 countries sa mundo, 22 lang po ang considered archipelagic. At kasali po ang Canada and the Philippines. So meron pong mga special rights and privileges as an archipelagic nation. So we would like to highlight the valuable resources offered by our maritime and archipelagic nation, which we Filipinos are responsible for protecting, preserving, and enriching. I'm sure marami po ang una po nating tanong, how can we help? Ang layo-layo po natin, paano po tayo makakatulong dito sa usapin na ito? First, the livelihood of many of our fishermen in the area have been adversely affected by what is happening. You will see a film clip later of some testimonials from the fishermen directly affected. So I know that normally many of the Filipino community organizations will have fundraisers for certain projects. I would appeal to you to please consider donating to the livelihood of the fishermen there. Hindi po sila naghahanap ng dole-out, hindi po sila naghahanap ng ayuda. Ang hinahanap po nila, ikabubuhay. So if you would consider donating a boat, sponsoring a school, sending supplies to a hospital, napakalaking tulong po sa kanila. You will also hear from one of our speakers this afternoon, the rich potentials in the South China Sea. So in your places of work, please try to be alert for opportunities that will help us in marine scientific research, mga paano natin magpo-protect yung corals natin sa West Philippine Sea, kung meron po kayong makikita opportunities na gano'n. And lastly, nakakatuwa po, when we've met several, through our time here, we have been making representations to government officials on this issue. Marami po sa kanila nagugulat. Importante pala sa inyo yung West Philippine Sea? Importante ba yan sa mga taong nasa Canada? So we had a panel discussion on the South China Sea 2 days ago with members of Parliament in Ottawa. And many of them have described these discussions as eye-openers. So as you learn more about the West Philippine Sea and its resources, its significance to the present and future, I hope you can actively engage with your policymakers. Ipaalam niyo po sa kanila na importante po itong issue na to, paano tumulong po silang manindigan para sa atin. So please join us in this collective endeavor to foster a deeper understanding, ignite a sense of pride, and forge lasting connections in our commitment to the preservation and prosperity of our maritime heritage. By doing so, the words sa manlulupig, di ka pasisigil, will take on a different meaning the next time we sing the Lupang Hiniran. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat, and we will now move on to the next segment. Good afternoon. For the next part of the Manamong portion, we'll be looking at a video from the fishermen that were actually affected by the aggression of the Chinese. They're specifically from Masinloc, Zambales.
This one is today morning. This one is today.
Which one is for today?
I just for your husband.
Okay.
This is for today.
Oh,
Remember you read it.
yes.
It's for Yanni. Quinty.
Oh.
Oh. Yeah. And to provide that. Provide that. Walang sound. No audio. Ginagawa niya mag-presto natin.
Walang bayad.
Walang bayad. Siguro.
People? No.
Para nag-apply sa 50. Somebody else here? Huh? Some. Urban pa. Makakaresan. Information. Napurban mo?
Hello.
Sorry.
Just saying.
One.
Ready for me? Oh, yeah. I was sure.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Siguro while they're working on the video to show, just wanted to share siguro how we got that video. Believe it or not, we got that video through someone who lives in Halifax. It turns out in Halifax, there are about 50 families who are from Masinloc. Okay, so yung Masinloc, Zambales. And and for them, the issue of the South China Sea is very personal. Kasi they went to school with the fishermen na hinaharas. They went in mga auntie nila yon, mga kamag-anak nila. So, for them, the issue is very personal. Kaya it was through them that we asked for help in reaching out to the actual fishermen. Kasi it's different when you see it sa news, di ba? But this one is really from the people on the ground. And so, we hope to be able to share with you yung actual sentiments nila.
I suggested that those who are willing to listen, chairs here, it's spread out and everybody's talking. This is disrespectful to the speaker. If I were the speaker, I would stop talking. So all the chairs here just like fall. I told them, Jane, we can move the chair, the tables.
That's okay.
Did they have a audio check?
Full of budget.
I don't know.
Okay, while they're fixing some technical issues, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Ambassador Austria for such a very inspiring update. Let's give her a big round of applause on the foreign credential. I know this has been a very important topic for many years, and it's amazing and inspiring to hear updates from you, Ambassador. And thank you for always advocating for the Filipino-Canadians. And we see a lot of progress, and we know that this is very important in our community to continue to advocate for everyone, and also to realize that we're not here just to work, but also to be given equal opportunity. As Ambassador Austria mentioned, we're not asking for favors or special treatment. We're just asking for equity and fairness, and that's what we are actually advocating here. So just by show of hands, while we're fixing some technical issues, who among you here are nurses and already working as nurses? Let's give them a big round of applause. Like we have here from Montreal, Mary Grace is a nurse. I know it's hard to be a nurse in that part of the province or the country, but you're doing an amazing job to really be part of the healthcare system in Montreal. Who are who are doctors? Do we have doctors here? Or we have a doctor here? What about engineers? Who are practicing engineers here in this room? And I know that we have so many outstanding professionals in the room, and we continue to advocate for the nearly 1 million Filipinos strong in Canada. Are we ready? Okay.
Okay, so we're very sorry because we're not able to show the video. So we will go straight to our resource takers. So our very first speaker is maybe our foremost expert on the law of the sea. And he's a lawyer with degrees in political science and law from the University of the Philippines. And also,
One of the reasons why we invited him also, aside from the fact that he's an expert on the law of the sea, is because of his Canadian connection. He has a master's degree in marine management and Doctor of Science in Law, both from Dalhousie University. So in when we went to Halifax, we learned that actually our speaker is like an alamat, a legend. So we were very happy that we could invite him here for the FCNC conference. So right now he's a full professor at the University of the Philippines College of Law and serves as the director of the Institute for Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea of the UP Law Center. He has worked extensively on maritime affairs since 1997, carrying out research, consultancy work, and teaching with numerous national and international publications to his credit. So please help me welcome Professor J. Batongbakan.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you for the introduction, and I'm very happy to be here to meet with you here in the Filipino community in Winnipeg. This is actually my first time here in Winnipeg. It's always good to see other places of Canada that I didn't get to go to when I was doing my studies. So today what we'll talk about is the West Philippine Sea. And this, I know, is a hot topic back home, but outside of the Philippines, I know that many people may not be as aware of the various aspects and nuances of it. So hopefully after this video, the people here in Winnipeg will have a much better grasp of this issue. And we really hope that this can stir people, our people really into action. So the West Philippine Sea. First of all, when we say West Philippine Sea, we just want to clarify because this is also a source of confusion. Many people think that West Philippine Sea is South China Sea, but it's actually not. The South China Sea is a geographic region. It's a large marine area bounded by several nations in Southeast Asia and two large bodies of water. That is the geographic South China Sea. Now, just because we call it the South China Sea, that does not mean that it belongs to any country. Okay? It's just a geographic and historical appellation. It has nothing to do with attribution, has nothing to do with who has jurisdiction, who has ownership of it. No? Now, when you hear the term West Philippine Sea, and if you've seen some of the news, often this gets into our news today. The West Philippine Sea refers actually to the part of the South China Sea, which essentially pertains to the Philippines under international law. And that part is defined through the rules under UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. It is under UNCLOS that all states are entitled to various maritime zones, as we call them, bale yung bits of water around their state. But essentially, ang pinaka-importante sa atin dito is the 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone and continental shelf. In this area, what this means is that all natural resources within 200 nautical miles from the coast of the Philippines, that belongs to the Philippines essentially. So when we say West Philippine Sea, all that we're saying, this is parang shorthand, an easier way to talk about or to refer to the areas of the South China Sea which pertain to the Philippines. And essentially, that's our EEZ and continental shelf. And some of the waters around the islands, the Kalan Islands, some of those islands are actually outside the EEZ. So that is what we are trying to point to when we say the West Philippine Sea. So narinig nyo, West Philippine Sea, it's essentially the waters west of the country that pertain to the Philippines under international law. Okay? So, now, what's happening in the West Philippine Sea? This is the part where I think most people will be most interested. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, right now in the West Philippine Sea, what has been happening is that our neighbor, should I name the neighbor?
Go ahead.
Okay. Especially the past year, they have been taking the West Philippine Sea from the Philippines. Now, how do you take an entire sea away from a country that to whom it pertains? Basically, you take control of the parts of it which are important. And here for the Philippines, no, the parts that are important are essentially these reefs, mga coral reefs in this area. So this has been concentrated particularly in the past year, no, around 3 areas. One is Scarborough Shoal, okay, which is about 124 nautical miles away from the coast of Zambales. It is also known as Bajo de Masinloc, no, which translates roughly to the low-lying reefs of Masinloc. Yes, that's Masinloc, Zambales. Okay, so since 2012, the Chinese have been excluding Filipinos from even coming near that shelf, and these efforts have intensified, especially in the past 2-3 years. Okay. Another place is Ayungin Shoal or Second Thomas Shoal in international charts. That is where the Philippines in 1999, no, in response to the event that Ambassador Austria mentioned, yung sa Mischief Reef, no, nagtayo doon ng Chinese ng tubo. In order to watch out for whatever else they will do, in 1999, the Philippines, without having much assets available, it decided to beach to ground a vessel, the Artesia Madre, on Ayungin Shoal. So it became our outpost on Ayungin Shoal. So in the past couple of years especially, the Chinese have been very, very insistent on the Philippines removing that ship, no? Taking it out of the shoal. No? Why? Because they don't like being watched, I guess. But it has reached an extent that they even committed acts of violence in order to try to prevent us from maintaining the Artesia Madre on the shoal. And then now, especially in the past month, a new location, Sabina Shoal, or what we call Escoda Shoal, which is closer to the Philippines than even Mischief Reef. No? Mischief Reef used to be the point that was occupied by the Chinese that was closest to the Philippines at about 120 nautical miles. Now they're trying to take Sabina Shoal, which is 25 nautical miles closer than Mischief. So you're looking at about 100 nautical miles from the Philippines already. And this naman, recently was also a scene of, well, not physical violence, but essentially violence between vessels. Yeah. So, ito yung nangyari. No? And some of these videos show you some of the most dangerous incidents as well. No? On the upper left, that's basically, sorry, hindi masyadong ilaw dito, but if you were to look closer, the reef is essentially occupied by so many Chinese fishing vessels. Fishing vessels that we've never seen actually fish. No? They look like fishing vessels, but we refer to them as the maritime militia because they don't do anything. They don't do anything, no fishing essentially, but they have been seen working with Chinese Coast Guard vessels. So it's like they are auxiliary vessels of the Chinese Coast Guard. On the upper right naman, no, that is an incident which took place just last month over Scarborough Shoal. One of our patrol aircraft doing a routinary patrol, no, every month more or less in patrol na yan, it was intercepted by a Chinese fighter aircraft. We don't know exactly where it came from, but probably it came from Hainan, which is about 800 nautical miles away. And it tried to prevent our patrol aircraft from continuing its mission. It harassed it by coming close and releasing flares. Okay. Flares are basically used to decoy missiles, but they're exactly what they sound like. They're aflame, you know. They're lit and they're ignited. So if any of those flares happens to collide with our patrol aircraft, which is only propeller driven, it could result in could result in a fire that would bring that aircraft up. And then on the other frames that you see there, these are several incidents where Chinese Coast Guard vessels basically attacked Philippine Coast Guard vessels or BFAR vessels, Bureau of Fisheries. On the lower left, that one is they're using a water cannon to destroy the radar and navigational and communication equipment of a BFAR patrol vessel that was on Scarborough Shoal, trying to give food packs and fuel to our fishermen near that area. And then on the remaining one, those are all from one day where the BNP Teresa Magbanua on Sabina Shoal was rammed by the Chinese Coast Guard 3 times. all of them resulting in damage to our Coast Guard vessel, including a hole that's about 2 meters wide, no, on the hull. So that's how aggressive they have been against us, trying to force not only Filipino fishing vessels, but also Philippine government vessels and aircraft especially, from establishing presence, from patrolling the area, or even just being there doing their usual function. Now, the worst incident that happened was this last June, where China Coast Guard vessels, no, outnumbered Philippine Navy resupply vessels 8-1. No, 8 vessels to 1, or 8 Chinese crew to 1 Philippine Navy vessel, and more than 10 boats against 2 Philippine Navy boats. They attacked the Philippine Navy boats, which were already anchored next to the BRP Sierra Madre on St. October Shoal. They used knives, axes, and spears to threaten our people. They boarded our vessel, destroyed the equipment on the vessel to prevent it from being used. No, it became unseaworthy essentially, and they tried to puncture the hull. And then they towed away, on the lower right, they towed away forcibly one of those boats with the Filipino crew on board. We're not sure what they were going to do, but they were basically heading out into the open sea. And were it not for the intervention of a Philippine Coast Guard vessel nearby, we don't know what might have happened to the Philippine coast. But this one talaga, this is clearly, very clearly, as you see there, an illegal use of force. Because these are Philippine government vessels, the Philippine Navy boats, no? And those are Philippine government personnel, the Philippine Navy crewmen. And they used, as I mentioned, axes and knives and spears to threaten them. One of our people lost his tongue because he was hit, no? Naipit siya when the Chinese boat on the upper left collided with the Philippine Navy boat. And basically, the Philippine Navy were under orders not to escalate the situation, so they did not fight back. No? Parang Gandhi type na peaceful or passive resistance, but unfortunately, that also meant na nabugbog din sila. And the Chinese were able to abort the mission, which they had almost completed already because they were already beside the BRP Sierra Madre at the time. So that caused a major crisis then. Since then, the parties have reached some kind of an agreement which nobody wants to reveal the contents of, but it has quieted down. The problem is after this incident was quieted down by that agreement, then the incidents in Sabina Shoal happened where they rammed our vessel 3 times. And ultimately, the real impact on this is on the fishing communities, as mentioned by Austria. No? And these are for our screen captures from the video that they themselves produced. It's on YouTube. The title is Voices from the Sea, parenthesis 2024. I would highly recommend it, no? Because it's produced by the fishermen themselves together with an NGO that I have been working with, where we've been giving, there on the lower right there, we've been giving them capacity building and training for the past several years, since 2017 when they reached out to me. Why did they reach out to me? It's because they literally have run out of fishing grounds. They cannot fish in the West Philippine Sea because they are always harassed and accosted by the Chinese Coast Guard and Chinese Maritime Militia, which you see there on the other photos on the first 2 rows or columns. No? They really are always harassed by them. Sometimes they would send rubber boats with armed men to encircle the bangka and tell them to go away. Other times, even during bad weather, they're just anchoring on the reef to wait out the bad weather. The Chinese Coast Guard came and cut their anchor lines, so they're forced to sail across dangerous waters to get home. No? It has reached the point where it is no longer profitable for them to even fish because they cannot go to the fishing grounds. When they get to the fishing grounds, they find that they cannot catch a lot anymore because the reef has already been destroyed. In cases where they are able to reach the fishing grounds, they find the China Coast Guard and the militia there ready to prevent them from going further. There's even one, I don't have it here, but there's one excerpt there where the fishermen just gathered shells from the reef to eat, no? Because yun yung pangulam nila that day. And the Chinese Coast Guard came and forced them to throw it back into the sea and forced them to leave without even eating. Okay. So that's the situation. It's very bad because our fishermen are experiencing trauma. This on the upper right there, you have a picture of one man. He had a heart attack recently, a stroke recently, and that really led to parang mental breakdown. Because he experienced such harassment from the Chinese. Some years ago, basically he was swimming in the reef and the Chinese came and he was in the water. So the Chinese used a hook to try to catch him. So it caught him as in the back, no? Hook, and dragged him across the reef. Okay, for him to get out. And then they took away his fishing gear, basically a spear gun, which is one of the more sustainable ways of fishing. No? And because of that, that memory sort of stayed with his mind talaga. So that when he had the stroke, it sort of just intensified. And now he's very, aside from the fact that he's been physically disabled, he's also been mentally disabled because of that. Now, the other fishermen that we've spoken with also talk about this trauma. And in the sense that every time now that they go out and see a Chinese Coast Guard or Chinese Maritime Militia vessel, kinakabahan na sila. And so that really discourages them from even continuing to fish. No? So that's why if you do know anyone from Masinloc, they'll tell you the same story, especially in the past 2 years, naggutom na sila. They have been unable to catch enough for their, even just their own livelihood. When we were talking to them in one forum, they were saying that before, they would take home from the vessel, each fisherman, there was enough that they could divide the profits from the catch, and they would have to earn maybe up to 30,000. No? These days now, they're lucky if they earn 2,000 or 4,000. And that's why a lot of them have exited the commercial fishing industry and decided to become municipal fishers, meaning they fish just in the nearshore areas near the coast. No? But the problem that they then faced is that pagdating sa coast, doon na naman yung Chinese, this time they're the ones financing fish cages or running the mines, illegal mining activity, which is polluting the nearshore waters. So because of that, Chinese away, Chinese nearby, that's when they realized that they needed help. And that's why they approached this NGO, which then also approached me in 2017. And since that time, we've been doing training and capacity building activities for them to try to find ways by which they can help themselves, by which they can help the government, and they can also survive essentially while things are being done, hopefully, to try to take back their fishing grounds. Okay. So that is the situation now from a on-the-ground perspective. But if you then zoom out, what is happening essentially is that China is taking away the West Philippine Sea. And here in this graph that I showed at one conference, it essentially shows the movement of the Chinese pushing down towards the Philippines outward. And they're taking over this area because of their military strategic interests. And they're essentially building a perimeter and strengthening it. And they're almost at that point, where they will succeed. And I have no doubt that from when they do finish with us, they will then move on to our neighbors, Malaysia and Indonesia. And interestingly, 2 weeks after this presentation, lumabas yung balita that China was asking Malaysia, demanding that Malaysia stop all of its petroleum exploration activity there. And a similar demand was also made to Indonesia. So actually, nangyayari na. Nag-accelerate na yung timetable. So that's what's happening. Now, why should we care? Why should we care that this is happening, especially for us here na kumbaga nahimik na tayo, we're here in the middle of Canada, malayo sa dagat, I know. But this is very important not only for us, but for the rest of the world. For the Philippines, and here on this chart, on this slide, the Deo will follow and explain even more, this in even more detail. The West Philippine Sea is part of South China Sea. The South China Sea has been blessed with rich biodiversity and fisheries. The biodiversity supported the rich fisheries, which has essentially historically provided the livelihoods of coastal communities around this area for hundreds of years. And for the Philippines, it has supplied up to 27% of the captured fisheries of the country. And that's a very large amount. It ensures food security. Despite that, however, the Philippines has actually been taking only a small portion of the catch in the South China Sea, the total catch. Now, here in this chart, as you see through the colors, are the patches of the different countries around it. The dark blue is China. The light blue is Vietnam. We are only the red band there. So, maliit pa lang na yung kinukuha natin. And yet, no, China is trying to take away even that small portion. This is important for us because the proportion of captured fisheries that's contributed by the South China Sea is pivotal. Really, it's important for our food security. No? And that's why it's very important for us to try to fight for our rights under international law. This is supposed to be ours by international law, but it is still being taken away from us by force. Now, the biodiversity itself is very important. These are coral reefs. They're among the richest ecosystems in the marine environment. The coral reefs there and the species there are connected, interconnected, no? So that whatever happens in the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea, let's say the collapse in fish stocks dyan, those will affect the fish stocks elsewhere. And guess what? The most connected fish stocks, the most connected waters to the West Philippine Sea are basically the inter-island waters of the Philippines, Sulu Sea, Visayan Sea, etc. So you can already see that if for any reason the fish stocks in the West Philippine Sea were to collapse due to overexploitation or deliberate damage, then that means that the ability of our inter-island waters to regenerate, or the ability of our fish stocks also to regenerate inside our country will also be seriously affected because nawawalan sila ng parang na additional supporting resources, kumbaga. And that's why it is very important for us both biodiversity and fisheries side, no? Food security and also our own environmental security. Now, energy is another thing. No? Whenever people say South China Sea, often people then associate it with oil. No? Ganun kasi yung assumption ng mga tao from before, especially. They'd say the oil-rich South China Sea. You see this in a lot of news and items. And to a certain extent, that is true because all our neighbors have been exploiting their petroleum resources on their side of the South China Sea. You see there in the brown colors. No? The darkest brown, that's the ones where there are proven reserves. No? And that's why the economies of Vietnam and Malaysia and Indonesia have been progressing very much ahead of the rest of the region. On the Philippine side, unfortunately, there is very little data, and that's why it looks as if there's none. But it is sure, we're sure that there is petroleum there. It's just a matter of being found. The problem is that the rate at which we've been exploring the West Philippine Sea has been only 1/10 of that of Vietnam and Malaysia with respect to their area. And that's why we do not even have enough data yet to make a reliable estimate. But one thing is sure, even the oil companies believe this. No? If there's any oil to be found in the Philippines, it's likely to be found in the West Philippine Sea. And that's why historically, our attention has also been to offer concessions for oil exploration in the West Philippine Sea. Ayun, nakikita niyo yung gray areas. Those are the latest contract areas that are offered by the DOE. There's any oil to be found, it's going to be there. And this is very important because if you can imagine, Malampaya, which is our single natural gas production platform, it has been in operation since 2001. That single platform provided up to 20% of the electricity needs of the country, depending on the time of year and certain rest. It is going to run out by 2034. That's within, it's malapit na. Originally, it was supposed to run out 2024, this year, but Shell did some additional exploration and they believe that they can squeeze out a little bit more natural gas from the reserve. No? But that's going to be a bit more expensive now because they're forced to do the additional drilling and some other things, which could add to the cost of taking the gas out. So we need to replace that reserve soon. And we had already discovered one potential replacement, and that happens to be the West Philippine Sea. Up to now, we have been unable to progress on exploring, developing that field because of China demanding that we also not explore the West Philippine Sea. The last time we tried it in 2022, the vessel was already there. It was about to conduct the development drilling. They were harassed by the Chinese Coast Guard and militia vessels, so they were prevented from continuing the operation. And then at the last minute, the Philippine government, under the previous administration, suddenly told the company that you lack one more clearance, no? A clearance document which had never been imposed ever before. So it was just an excuse to get the vessel to stop its operation. By that time, millions had already been spent just to put the vessel there. No? So it is really discouraging investors, aside from stopping us from tapping our energy reserves. So our energy security is also dependent on what happens here. Then other activities, now this one is the one which links us as well to the world. If you see those red bands, those are basically the tracks of ships bringing trade, bringing goods all across the world. And you can immediately notice that for the Philippines, its connection to the rest of the world by maritime trade is through the West Philippine Sea. If any country were to take control of the West Philippine Sea, we would essentially be hostage to that country because we cannot access the world without passing through their territory. It's the same story with respect to air. So these show you some of the air routes all across the area. Again, the Philippines, because of its location, cannot access the rest of the Asian continent unless it passes through the West Philippine Sea, the South China Sea. So if it were to become the absolute territory of another state, then we would be beholden to that state in order for us to be able to connect with the rest of the continent. And so that's why it's very important for us, for international law to be followed, because international law guarantees us that access. But that is exactly what the other side does not want to be implemented in the South China Sea and the West Philippine Sea. So this tells you now why it's very important. Now, an additional new interest that has only recently got attention is the fact that submarine cables pass through the West Philippine Sea. Submarine cables are what enable high-speed internet access. And nowadays, all economies, all businesses depend on this internet access. Banking transactions cannot take place now without this. When you look at the layout of submarine cables across the West Philippine Sea, again, the same story. Our access essentially to the global internet is through the West Philippine Sea. And therefore, we can be cut off from the rest of the world digitally by any country that happens to control the West Philippine Sea. Now, for now, again, international law guarantees access, but the problem is international law is now sought to be changed by this country, by China. And that's why all of these things are happening. It's the fact of taking control. Now, there are other resources for the future as well, such as mineral resources with deep seabed, gas hydrates and caltrates. This is essentially methane gas, natural gas that has frozen, and you can just pick it off the bottom of the ocean. And genetic resources. You will talk more about that later. These are all waiting for us. They're all just waiting to be found. The thing is, they're guaranteed to us by international law. But if international law changes, or if international law is not implemented in the West Philippine Sea, we will lose access. We will lose the benefits of these potential resources. So that's why the West Philippine Sea has been such an important national interest. And I hope that clarifies why we're fighting so hard for it back home. It's not a matter of what China usually presents. China simply says that we're just acting as puppets of the US, as if we don't have our own interests. That's simply not true. And I hope that this has enlightened you on those particular interests. Now, UNCLOS itself is also very important to the Philippines. This is the United Nations Convention on the Sea. It's sometimes referred to as the Constitution of the Oceans. It is the international law that was agreed upon by states over a period of 30 years after the Second World War. It is a product of the mandate of the United Nations to progressively develop international law so that problems like this, claims to oceans and resources, could be solved legally in a manner that is peaceful, under rules that have been agreed to by all. And this body of law continues to develop. Recently, last year, they announced a new high seas treaty to protect marine biodiversity in the areas we have national jurisdiction. I think they will also talk about those later. So what the point is that we have been trying to establish rules of law for the international community, which guarantees smaller states like us an equal seat at the table, so that it will not be a place of just power, pure power of states governing every decision and everything that happens. That's going to be like a new colonialism if that were to happen. And the Philippines has always valued UNCLOS to the point that it participated in changing international law. In 1952, when this all started, the Philippines was not even considered an archipelagic state. And that meant that all inter-island waters in the Philippines were high seas, open to all states. Anyone could go in, fish, get petroleum, do war games, etc., even in the Cebu Sea or the Visayan Sea, because these were the high seas. And that was the state of international law back then. Because of that, we knew that that was the case, and we therefore needed to change it. So when we participated in the UNCLOS negotiations, we pushed hard for a position, the one that we eventually, where we said that we are an archipelago, and therefore we should be treated differently. We pushed certain positions to the end that 30 years later, in 1982, when UNCLOS was finally finished in negotiations, we had been able to bring about a change. The international community accepted or recognized that we had sovereignty over our inter-island waters. So it was no longer part of the high seas, and they did not have absolute access to it anymore. We also agreed that we would be entitled to all these maritime zones under UNCLOS, including the 200-mile EEZ and continental shelf. In addition to the inter-island waters being subject to our sovereignty, we would also have an expanded resource base extending up to 200 nautical miles at least from our shores. And so that's why UNCLOS has been a very, very important point for us in our continuing advocacy for a rule of law for the international community. And what we've been doing, what we've been trying to do, very hard to defend in the South China Sea, the Philippine Sea, is basically what we gained out of this advocacy, what we gained under international law. Now, South China Sea arbitration, which you might have heard of, this is actually an effort on the part of the Philippines in response to China's taking of Scarborough Shoal. We sued China, and we basically were able to successfully convince the tribunal that we were the ones doing the right thing. We were the ones taking the right position on how international law should be applied to the South China Sea and the West Philippine Sea. Because of that, the tribunal essentially agreed that we are fully entitled to our 200 nautical mile EEZ. And China's claims to this, yung so-called 9-9, 10-9, those are all invalid. Okay? And so we are entitled fully to our 200-mile EEZ. We can even add to this by claiming an extended continental shelf, which we did a few months ago. And that means that our resource base for minerals, petroleum, and all of those in the seabed resources, these we're entitled to this under law. And we're also entitled to the fishery resources and other living resources in the 200-mile EEZ. Before this, it was not even certain because China was laying a claim. With China's claim having been invalidated, we were now assured under international law of our rights and entitlements to these resources. If there is still any pending dispute between us and China, it would only be the fact of the disputes over the islands themselves, and that would create only these small enclaves, small holes within this large resource area. And that's why this was really a victory for the Philippines. If the dispute, by the dispute being reduced in area, that meant that the area of certainty to the Philippines, especially the resources of the sea, they were already assured to us by the tribunal's decision. And that's why China hates it, because that also meant that they could only legitimately claim those the red area in the upper left side there, the northwestern side there of the South China Sea. It could never extend all the way down to Scarborough Shoal or around Liuwin Shoal and Escoda Shoal. Now, the tribunal's decision was very important, and this is why China has been engaged in an all-out effort as well to try to invalidate it before the world court, before public opinion. The tribunal said very clearly in no uncertain terms that its claim was invalid. It did not survive UNCLOS. So the 9-9 claim that you see there was erased. It also made findings of facts that the islands and rocks in the South China Sea, yes, they're still in dispute, but the area of dispute, as I mentioned, has been reduced to essentially only those islands and rocks and the small waters around them. It does not include the rest of the West Philippine Sea. And they also found that China undertook quite a number of activities against the Philippines. They also did a lot against other nations, but we put in issue in the case the ones that they undertook against the Philippines to assert their claims and to prevent us from exercising our rights. The tribunal said that that was all illegal. That was all contrary to international law. And that's why panalo-panalo tayo in that sense. We were able to show that the Philippines had always been acting in accordance with law, while China was not. And that's why we continue on this advocacy, because now, despite that judgment, as I've shown you, China insists on using its power, using its might against the law. And as I mentioned, they're now trying to take the West Philippine Sea away from the Philippines. So hopefully that has enlightened you on this serious challenge that we face right now. What we're asking to do, aside from basically being more informed about what's going on, because we know the Chinese also engaged in a major information warfare effort to try to get the Philippines to withdraw voluntarily, try to get the Philippines to give up what it has gained through international law, try to make the Philippines believe that, in the world, it's only power that determines everything. We do not believe that, because in that kind of a world, small countries like the Philippines will not have a chance, and we will become new colonies naman of new imperial powers. And that's why we're working hard to try to inform people about what's going on. Hopefully that this can then give you some inspiration, shall we say, to support efforts to do this, to disseminate information, to support groups that are trying to fight this on their own, in their own way, such as our fishermen, who are trying to just survive at this point, against Chinese activities, but also various agencies of government like DFA, which continues also to try to protect our rights and entitlements. So, maraming salamat po. I will turn over to Dale for more details.
Thank you, Attorney Jay Batombaka, for providing us with a very informative presentation on the West Philippine Sea, and also such thought-provoking insights. I'm sure you have some questions in your mind. So just hold on to them. Hold on to them. Before our open forum question and answer, I'd like to call Micah to introduce our second resource speaker.
Thank you. So our next resource speaker is a microbial oceanographer. Okay. Before meeting him, I didn't know what a microbial oceanographer is, but I'm learning a lot. He's known for being the first Filipino to descend into the Deep, the deepest part of the Philippine Trench. He actually put the Philippine flag there, and there are videos of him doing that. It's, it just gives me goosebumps just looking at it. So, well, he also has a day job of being associate professor at the University of the Philippines Marine Science Institute. He's the youngest faculty member of the institution. So he also was the chief scientist of the Protect WPS. It stands for Predicting Responses Between Ocean Transport and Ecological Connectivity of Threatened Ecosystems in the West Philippine Sea. So he also has a Canada connection. He got his PhD in University Laval. Yeah, he took his oceanography classes in French. So we're very proud to have him here. Another alamat, another celebrity in our midst. Please help me welcome Dr. Deo Onda.
Magandang hapon po. I will not be staying in the podium. Thank you again to the organizers for the invitation. It's nice to be back in Canada. I am more of an Eastern Coast guy, but my first time in Winnipeg was because I wanted to go to Banff. But the cost of flight was very, very expensive. So me and my friends, this very brilliant idea of flying to Winnipeg and doing hitchhiking, going to Edmonton, all the way to Banff, and then all the way to Tofino in Vancouver. So we did that for over a month. So that was my experience on the West Coast doing hitchhiking. But all of those experiences really enriched my perspectives and understanding of Canada. And all of those also helped me. And when I went back to the Philippines, allowed me to understand on how we can really contribute to the understanding of the seas that we have. I'll be introducing to you a new battleground. Dr. J already introduced you to the West Philippine Sea, the intricacies and complexities of the jurisdiction, the geopolitical tensions that we have. But I'd like to bring you back to the very core issue. Because when we say, atin ang West Philippine Sea, pangalagaan natin to, what are we trying to really protect? Is it really just the space? Is it just really the 200 nautical milestone? What are we trying to give to the to the future generations of Filipinos? And with that, along with the theme of why we were invited today is Panama. Siguro just going deeper into what the ambassador mentioned earlier, there was a presidential decree by President Duterte in 2017 designating September as the Maritime and Archipelagic Nation Awareness Month, or MANAMO. So MANAMO is actually a moniker. Mana, which is the root word for inheritance. MANAMO is our inheritance. But what are we inheriting? So before I proceed, let's look at each other and let's greet each other. Happy MANAMO Month. Happy MANAMO. Yes. So again, going back to the question, what are we trying to protect so that we can inherit, so that our children and the future generation of Filipinos can actually inherit? The Philippines is a maritime country. 7,641 islands. Hindi na po low tide or high tide, no? Definite na po yung number niyan whether it's low tide or high tide. It's more than what we knew from before. That is 7,107 islands. Ang tanong kay Gonzales was high tide or low tide. Hindi na po. Now we have 7,641 islands. 5th longest coastline in the world. And if we actually measure the number, the area of waters we have, 82% of the Philippines is underwater. I'd like that number to stick to you. 82%. The Philippines is only made up of 18% land. So Filipinos, basically, are taong lakat. We are a maritime nation. We always say we are not divided by waters. We're actually connected by it. The Filipinos have evolved several ways on how to cross waters. May bansa, may iba't ibang itsura ng bangka, may sailboats, may binta, because that's our connection to the sea. And we would like to rekindle that connection. And needless to say, because Filipinos live by the coast, actually po, more than 50% of the population of Filipinos, more than 50% of the provinces we have are actually found on the coast. One way or another, we depend on tuna. We depend on, ano ba mga isda? Kabakol. I think that's inland.
Galunggong.
Galunggong. Huh? One way or another, we eat salt. So we are connected to the oceans and we're connected to the sea. Filipinos actually depend on the bounties of the sea. The GDP of the country, 7% of it comes from the ocean economy. Sabi nga natin, di ba, kahit sa barko sa mundo, you will find a Filipino seaman. Yes. That's one of the biggest industries we have. You know, I did my PhD in Canada and I went to the North Pole 5 times. On board the Coast Guard vessel Louis Saint Laurent, the largest icebreaker of Canada. And you wouldn't imagine, I didn't imagine that when I went there were Filipino crew who actually are part of the CCGS Louis Saint Laurent. I went to Yellowknife, very, very far north, even in Puglokto. Pagbaba ko talaga ng airport, the people who breathe in were Filipinos. You know, we're very resilient people. But it also means that we can actually contribute a lot. But yeah, 7% of the GDP of the country comes from the ocean economy. Ang laki nun. And probably you do not know, who knows about Amazon? Amazon forest. South America, di ba? Sabi natin, that's the most diverse, the most mega diverse forest in the world. Philippines actually is part of the Coral Triangle. Coral Triangle is composed of these countries, yun yung naka-blue. And those are the areas of the world where you will find the most number of corals, the most number of species. So we call it the center of marine biodiversity. Because that's where you find the most number of biodiversity in the marine environment. But the Philippines is the center of marine biodiversity. Kung meron kang triangle, yung Pilipinas yung sentro nun. It means that the Philippines is hosting the most number of species, the most number of biodiversity. In effect, the Philippines is actually a world heritage. If we want to protect the Amazon in South America, we should also protect the Amazon of the seas. And that is actually the Philippines. And that is why, even if we're very far from the Philippines right now, Canada, not being part of the Philippines, it is a moral obligation of everyone to protect this national heritage. Hindi na lang siya usapin ng jurisdiction. It's not just a matter of territory. It's actually our inheritance to the next generation. If we don't protect that, especially Filipinos do not protect that center of biodiversity, ano pa ngayon yung makikita ng future generations? And that is also the reason why we're not convincing not just Filipino politicians. That's why we were in Parliament 2 days ago to also convince Canada to take a stand to actually protect the Philippines, not just for Filipinos, but for the entire humanity. But going deeper into the West Philippine Sea, kasi minsan, ako pag talaga, buti na lang si Sir J, pag politics, kasi ako tumutubo talaga yung ilong ko. Kaya pala ako naging scientist. Kasi hindi kaya yung mga terms na legal. But probably today, what I wanted to do is to remember 3 things. Para pag uwi ninyo, uy anak, uy apo, uy asawa, ganyan, uy girlfriend or boyfriend. These are the 3 main reasons why we need to protect the West Philippine Sea. 1, because of food. 2, because of ecological connectivity. And 3, because of drugs. Ito ba yung drugs? Hindi matatokang dito na. Drugs and medicines. Now, when we talk about food, the previous administration under Duterte, one of the rhetorics of that administration was, kaya na natin yung West Philippine Sea, wala naman tayong university. Kukunti na naman yung naman natin. But you know what? Filipinos took a stand. Filipino scientists took a stand. Sabi namin, no, actually, Filipinos can gather 27% of our captured fisheries. 27%. And that actually feeds around 2.3 million Filipinos. You know, I am Palawenyo. I actually grew up in Palawan. West Philippine Sea is our backyard. I grew up in a neighborhood full of Filipino fisher folks. Growing up, seasons, doon po yan sila pumunta. You don't find them for weeks. Kasi nandun sila sa West Philippine Sea. Starting 2016, 2017, I started asking them, sabi ko, bakit po parang hindi na kayo lumawala? Parang nandito na kayo lagi. They told me, because we are afraid to go to West Philippine Sea. We don't go there anymore. And what's the repercussion of that? Sasalumukuhan ng pagkain. Pinagsisiksikan nila yung sarili nila sa mga espasyo maliliit in very small spaces, competing also with other small fisher folks. Now, West Philippine Sea is our second most important fishing ground. The first one is the Northeast Philippines, Philippine rice, Benambang, Aurora, yan yung Isabela, Bicol. That's a very important fishing ground. But West Philippine Sea comes next. And when we talk about West Philippine Sea, we're not only talking about the municipal waters, yung mas malapit. We're also talking about the entire EEZ. So, the presence of Chinese militia and other entities from China scare our fisher folks. And because they cannot go there, they don't go there anymore, no one catches the fishes for Filipinos. Data show that in 1990s, the West Philippine Sea contributed to around 25 to 27% of the entire captured fisheries of the country. In 2018, BIFA reported that this contribution went down to 2%. 25% to 2%. 23% na captured fisheries natin wala. We need to ask ourselves, bakit kumonte ang huli? Is it because nasisira na yung corals? Kaya wala nang tahan ng isda? Is it because there's climate change? Or is it because someone else is getting the fish? And that was the data that was shown by Dr. Bustamante earlier. Philippines actually has the smallest proportion of catch that were taken from the West Philippine Sea. Ngayon, bakit no? Sabi na kanina ni Dr. Batubakan, we can actually classify our waters. Yung municipal waters, dedicated for para rin sa mga maliliit na mga isda, and then yung ating EEZ, or yung 200 nautical miles away from the shore. It is true that you actually have more fish in municipal waters. However, the area in municipal waters is smaller. So for example po, one fisherman will go to 1 by 1 kilometer in municipal waters. And there are around 10 fishes in that small area of 1 by 1 kilometer. Kung meron ngayong 10 nun sa municipal waters, a fisherman will be able to catch 100 fishes. However, if they go out into the EEZ, which is a larger area, there might be less number of fish, but they have greater area to actually fish on. And if they are able to go there and catch the fish, they will get 300 fishes. So the area is actually important, but the key is access. You have the area, but you cannot go there. You have the area, but you cannot fish there. There are fishes there, but you cannot get them. Sino ngayon ang sa disadvantage? It's the Filipinos. So access is key. And the more militia of China enters in our waters, the less space is given for Filipinos. And why is actually the West Philippine Sea important? Because of the coral reefs. Ang daming corals kasi doon. No? Isang example po dito is a unit shoal. Even though a unit shoal is very far, it's very, very productive. Now, the other point that I'd like you to remember is ecological connectivity. Tayo pinanganak tayo sa Pilipinas, pero pwedeng hindi tayo lalaki doon. We're now settled in Canada. We reproduce here. Dito tayo nagkaroon ng anak. Dito tayo tumatanda. The fishes are also like that. They're born in one reef, but they travel far, and then they mature, they reproduce in another reef. The Philippines, being part of the West Philippine Sea, being part of the Philippines, is an important source of those eggs. So ito pong model na to just shows you that if eggs are actually laid in the middle of the South China Sea, where will they go? So saan yung nakikita ninyo? Many of those will go to China. Many of those will go to other Southeast Asian countries. Others will go to the internal waters of the Philippines. So ano po ibig sabihin nito? It is not only the Philippines that is benefiting from the reefs that we have in the Kalayaan Island group. It is actually the entirety of the South China Sea. So anything that happens to those reefs will affect not just the Filipinos, but actually the entire ASEAN, plus China, plus the other countries even south of the Philippines, including Malaysia, including Indonesia, hanggang Papua New Guinea. Kaya again, it is a moral obligation to protect those trees, not just for Filipinos, but actually for the entire region and the world. When you have more biodiversity, it also means that you have organisms. Mas marami ng bacteria, mas marami ng viruses. Bakit po siya importante? Antibiotic. Antibiotic was actually discovered by Canadians from a fungi. Galing sa amag. If you have more of these kinds of organisms, you will find more types of antibiotics. And because the Philippines is the center of marine biodiversity, it also means that we have so much potential for new drugs and therapeutics. And alam niyo po, China already knows this. Kami po ito, no? This is the work that we do. This is yung sinasabi ni Dr. Bakal kanina na Sierra Madre sa Ayungin Shore. We went to Ayungin Shore to study the Ayungin Shore. That's the work that we do as marine scientists. We go out there and understand how are we going to use and protect those resources. Ngayon, Filipino scientists were very disadvantaged. Wala po kami malalaking bangko. This is West Philippine Sea. Baka ini-imagine nyo, West Philippine Sea, kalmado, white sand. No, it's actually a very dangerous ground. And even if we don't have the resources, we still go out there. Because it is our mandate, it is our obligation as Filipino scientists to understand the resources for Filipinos. But we are also not spared from China's presence. And you know, China, why they're there, aside from the reasons discussed by Dr. Batumbakan earlier, China sees the South China Sea more than the territory. They see it as a source of food, they see it as a source of medicine, they see it as a source of other biotechnological resources. They even came up with 3 marine research stations inside our territory in the middle of the South China Sea. Why? Marine research station allows you to do studies. When you know more about the reefs, when you know more about the organisms, you would know how to utilize them. And they've been doing that. So the Filipinos are being at a disadvantage. Ito pa yung malupit. When they publish their results, they refer to these areas as the Natch Islands. They did not recognize that they are within the Philippines. Ano ba yung repercussion nito? They institutionalize the name, which then is recognized by other countries. And by doing that, they are able to establish and concretize their presence. Um, by doing research, they are also now able to come up with technologies. Ano po yung isa sa mga technologies na nakakabahala? They can now do fish farming in the middle of the ocean. They've been doing this already in the Barents Sea, and there are reports that they will start establishing ocean cages for fish in the middle of the South China Sea. Because they have the control in the area, they will be able to do that. Now, what's the problem? If you have people living in the island, and if you have fish cages, you have a stable supply of food. If you have a stable supply of food, you will be able to stay there longer. Alam niyo po, whenever we go to Pag-asa, nakakaaway mga mangingisda natin. Because they are very small boats. Pag malakas ang panahon, they cannot go out. Wala kang matangaliman sa Pag-asa. So they really rely on fish. Kung walang kung masama ang panahon, no food, anong gagawin nila? They need to collect shells. They need to actually fend themselves by looking for something else on the coast. And it becomes very challenging for Filipinos to stay in these islands. But if you have technologies like this, sarap ang buhay. Meron kang pagkain every day. So technology allows China to concretize their claims and their presence in the area. Sabi natin kanina, the more biodiversity you have, the more potential sources of medicine. China has already been doing this. And where are they getting the samples? Within the Kalayaan Island. Again, balikan natin ang concept, exclusive economic zone. Any resources that is found within the EEZ should be for the benefit of the Philippines. But China has been exploiting our resources. Bakit siya mahalaga? COVID-19, cancer, TB, monkeypox. We need new generations of drugs and therapeutics, and we can find them in the marine environment. But because they've been doing more studies, because they have access and control to the area, they are now at the advantage. The Filipinos are the disadvantaged. Now, sorry, next. Yeah, so we as scientists are not spared from China's harassment. Yan ang tinatawag na lang po namin. No? Pero yung barko dyan sa likod is a Chinese vessel. If you can play it, gusto ko lang marinig nila yung harassments. So whenever we go out, there's all, ang sabi namin, ang special namin lagi. Kasi whenever we go out, we have this one vessel that just guards us. And that's the Chinese Coast Guard. Tinatawag na lang namin, but actually, the Chinese Coast Guard vessel, nagpapawak yung yan. And whenever he said, we dive, you hear that underwater. And if you are a diver, masakit lang sa leg. So what happens? We try to charge up. Because those falling na us. Tinatawag na lang namin siya, kasi wala lang magawa. So we just laugh it off. Now, another battleground that I'd really like to emphasize, China has not just been doing research in the surface, but they now moved to the deep sea. The bakit kanina Torrenje, deep sea. They actually are already doing studies in the deep sea areas of the South China Sea. Bakit umalaga ang deep sea? Minerals, nodules, gas hydrates. They are one of the countries that have the technology to go up and down and actually explore. So the deep sea has now become a new battleground in the South China Sea. Weirdly, China invited me to check on their submersible. I was in Hainan last year, And they even showed me this submersible. So I don't know if you've heard about the Titan.
Yes.
Diba? Yung po, that is actually a deep sea submersible. They now have that one. And they've been diving in the deepest parts of the world for the past 5 years. Now, they also now have a big program, a dedicated program, to actually global trench exploration and dive programs. Planado yan. And one of the targets is the Philippines. If you do not know, the Philippines actually has a lot of deep sea areas. We have a lot of trenches, we have a lot of growth, and we also have one hidden depth, which is a depth more than 10,000 meters. Why is it important? Because new compounds and new molecules and new enzymes and new medicines can be found there. But more importantly, gas hydrates, manganese nodules, iron nodules in the deep sea parts of we don't have that capability. The only thing that we were able to do at least study right now is called the FMD. The FMD is the deepest part of the Philippines. And with collaborations of other countries, we were able to dive there in 2021. So these are just some of those events. Yeah, I look big after that. Pero pareho naman yung manbag.
And we're about on the building church for the first time in history by anybody. Is it about 5 years? Yeah, it's really good. There it is. That's the bottom of the building trench. This is the deepest part. So we're showing a raw depth of 10,045 meters.
Now, you go to the bottom of the Philippine Trench, that's the deepest part. That's the third deepest in the world. And it is found within the Philippines. What I'd like you to appreciate is that we only don't have resources that go far. We also have resources that go deep. So, but the funny thing is that what did we actually find in the Philippine Trench are this. Yeah. So this is the bottom of the trench. And when we started exploring, this is what we found. I thought it was a jellyfish. But can anyone guess what did we find there? There. What is that? No, that's not nodules, ma'am. Unfortunately. That's a plastic bag. Piles and piles of plastics in the deepest part of the Philippines. There's also teddy bear, my pants, my shirt. But this just tells us that whenever we do on land, we'll always have an effect in the marine environment. Even if the marine environment is deep, even if it's the third deepest part of the world. We also found very weird creatures. That's actually an organism, yung mga white land. And then we also found deep sea jellyfish and different types of snakes. Ayan. These are called Rhodilea. They're like octopods, no? Sa pinakamalalim ng part ng Pilipinas. They're also weird-looking fish, eelpout, ass fish. Yeah, why it's ass fish. But it just tells us that we
Sa mga Pilipino, ito po MVP atin ito.
That was the first time that the MVP was visited by MVP. But I just would like to emphasize, by doing research and doing exploration, we get to know more what we have. And by knowing more, we get to care more. And when we care about it, we do something more about it. So hopefully, this presentation was able to give you a glimpse of the contributions and the very important contributions of Filipino scientists. Gusto ko lang pong sabihin, meron na tayo mga barko natin. We now have our own vessels for research. Dati wala. Dati nanihirap lang tayo. And one opportunity for you is, please support Filipino scientists. Support young budding researchers who would like to study in Canada. I always say, I was raised by the entire community of Filipinos in Quebec. Wala akong allowance, they fed me. I was about to defend my dissertation for 2 weeks. May naka-assign sa akin every day to feed me. Parang daw hindi na ako nag-worry dun sa kakainin ko. There's a lot of ways on how we can help and send them back to the Philippines. We need more scientists and we need more support for the West Philippine Sea. I'll overshoot na ako sa time. So again, maraming salamat. Happy Monday.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Deona. I'm sure you're now charged with a lot of questions in your mind, in your heart. But I'd like to call on our third resource group or speakers to come on stage. We have here, now I forgot his name. Let me get the program. Okay, so this one. So our next guest is from the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary, Mr. Adonis Sucalit, for a quick presentation. But I'd like to call in back here Dr. Deonda and Attorney Jake for the open forum. So hold on to your thoughts. I'll give you enough time to ask questions, but meanwhile, please get your coffee. We'll use our break for the question and answer. So while having the open forum, you can have your break, your coffee, and your snacks. Okay, take it away, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'll just go straight into my presentation, knowing that we have a little bit of time. But yeah, I'm not gonna take more than 7 minutes. So I think we've been talking about, right? I think one of the key messages from the ambassador and our two distinguished resource persons, right? Like, why should we care as Filipino-Canadians, isn't it? And that's kind of why I'm here. In a way, as part of the Filipino diaspora here in Canada. So I'm gonna talk a little bit, right, around. So I think we've already seen this, right? What comes to mind in recent news. And so for me, I'm really coming in from the angle of, what are we, in our own little way, what can we do to help in very practical terms, right? So we are the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary. I'm gonna give a bit of an overview. And then secondly, why should we engage ourselves, right? And what are some of our small projects or initiatives to do our own little, contributions to the issues back home, but also here. And then some of the strategic directions, and maybe it's a call to action as well. I'd like to answer my sharing in terms of a call to action. So having said that, so Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary. Anong ginagawa ng Philippine Coast Guard or Auxiliary dito? Right? So the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary is a uniform voluntary organization. It has its roots even early on, but with the Philippine Coast Guard law in 2009, it really stressed the role of the auxiliary. So as you said here, we are actually under the direct supervision of the Philippine Coast Guard. In fact, the Philippine Coast Guard calls us their multiplier, right, force. Because as we know, kita niyo ang archipelagic nature natin, kulang ang resources ng Coast Guard actually. So the auxiliaries really come into play to support that. So just some of the photos here and why this is relevant. So last 2020 actually, we got activated by no other than the commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Barsatia Jr. On the white uniform there on the top left is actually the current commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Gavan. He was then the Commodore for Central Visayas, and he was actually part of the plan, in conceptualizing the formation of the very first Coast Guard Auxiliary Unit outside of the Philippines. So nandito po tayo sa Canada. Ito lang ang in a way na iba. So this is a very good opportunity for us to be involved. So last year, April, we got activated as a squadron already, which is larger than a division. And then we continued to kind of recruit. So you see photos of our members. Currently, we're just over 31 members. We're all based in Ottawa, Canada. Again, for us, why are we here? I have my fellow Coast Guard Auxiliary also here, si Commander Bautista. So for us, it is really about, right? Like, we continue to love our country and our, it's part of a heritage and who we are, and a sense of our identity. That's why, there is relevance to what we're doing. It is exercising our twin citizenship, isn't it? No? Kahit kayo, di ba, nagpapadala kayo ng pera, you send, money back home to educate your family members and so on. And I think for me, what's more important, kasi the Philippine embassy and our resource persons, right? They kind of represent, the issues of the Philippines and the Philippine government. So I'm standing here basically, right, as a Canadian, a Filipino-Canadian. And I don't know how many of you have heard, right, of Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy. Can I see a raise of hands? So really good. Some of you are aware about it, right? So this is actually Canada's response to what is happening in the Asia Pacific. Particularly, right, in terms of balancing the interest, the regional interest, sabi nga kanina, yung freedom of navigation and so on, right? It will be affected if we don't do anything. So this is not just the Philippines, right? It also will affect Canada's interest in terms of trade, economy, the resources, right? That are, hopefully, kita natin, di ba? There's a scientific perspective, Kita natin ang relevance. So, in Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, 5 ang objectives po nun. Out of the 2 of the objectives, this is where I believe we can make a difference. One is in terms of promoting, marine environmental protection. Isa yan sa objectives of the Indo-Pacific strategy. Canada will want to contribute, right, to protect the center of marine biodiversity of the world, right? So meron po tayong state doon. Nasa objective yan. So kami sa Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary, even if nasa Ottawa kami, we support projects back home. Mangrove planting, sa coastal communities. Kita natin sa Haiyan, di ba? Yung mga communities na nag-survive ng Typhoon Haiyan, they were more resilient kasi nandun ang mga mangroves. It protected the villages. And very important. So pwede tayo, mag-support tayo sa mga communities, sabi nga, in Masinloc, for example, we can do some of these projects together. Plastic pollution, right? Alam natin, kita natin, even in the deep waters, di ba? So kami po, we support coastal cleanups sa Philippines. Meron din tayong tinatawag na scuba surveyors. Those who are the scuba divers, they go underwater and they clean the reefs, right? I've done that many times. I've also done artificial reef projects, because I'm also a scuba diver. So, even in Ottawa, we have also partnered with the embassy staff before. Nag-beach cleanup po kami in our own little way, di ba? Kita nga ng mga fellow Canadians in the community, ginagawa ng mga Philippine Coast Guard sila dito? Nagpapasalamat sila. Thank you for helping us clean up our beaches. Right? So these are some little things we can do. And then the Amana Mo celebrations nga. This is actually the 3rd year that we've already been involved with the Philippine Embassy's efforts to raise awareness during the Amana Mo month. So again, very thankful for the partnership with the Philippine Embassy. And then the second objective of the Indo-Pacific strategy, which we feel we can also contribute, are what they call people-to-people ties. Alam na natin yan, di ba? Kasi twin citizens na tayo. We are the best representatives, right, of the Canadian public. Kasi meron na tayong ginagawa. And if we can engage other members of our community to be involved also in this, right? Through what? Even here, we do blood donation drives. We're helping our own community, right? So that's one way we're giving back, hindi lang sa Philippines, but here. We do community outreach, So we've done some projects where we went to women's shelters, nabigay kami ng mga pamasko, right? First aid training and services, kung merong activity na Independence Day celebration, nag-o-offer kami ng first aid services para kung merong mangailangan ng first aid, we're there, And then youth development program, So we are engaging student associations at 2 universities in Ottawa in terms of helping them not forget their heritage and so on. And we have a boat project that we're trying to do. Hopefully we'll be able to launch that next year, also with the support of the embassy. And then this is also really one practical way we are doing it. So alam na po natin every year, ilang typhoon sa Pilipinas, right? So what we're doing, we collect from the community, and you'll be surprised. Hindi lang used clothing ang namimigay, brand new. May nagdo-donate po, brand new clothing. Kaya pala, sabi ko nga sa mga kaibigan, napaka-lucrative ang ukay-ukay. No? But that's beside the point, right? We can really, kasi alam na natin, so kami, meron na kami nakastock sa Cebu, which is where our sort of main office sa squadron natin. In case meron typhoon, response na kami. Bigay na kami through the Philippine Coast Guard. Kasi sila ang frontline for disasters. And then, emergency water. Yung bago sa kanina lang, di ba? We also gave 10,000 liters of bottled water sa affected communities in Metro Manila. So these are just little ways we do. So in terms of strategic direction, this is part of the internationalization of the Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary. So we have a plan to already activate the Houston Division in the US. We are looking into activating a squadron in Vancouver. And then also, we actually have gotten partnerships with the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, and hopefully soon we will get connected to our Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary as well. So hopefully, through those partnerships, we will have training opportunities and so on. And then, again, for me, we are also collaborating with some of the Coast Guard Auxiliaries in CNCRCL. Kasi yun yung malapit sa communities natin and in Palawan sa West Philippine Sea. So I think for me, I leave you with that as parang a call to action. Hopefully, again, if you want to talk more about PCGA, we're here this evening. So happy to talk more about it and how you can be involved. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Don. Not can you remain here? And also, can I call on Dr. Deo and Attorney Jay Matokbaka? All right, so we will now formally open the Q&A, but because of our time constraints, I'd like you to be very specific with your questions. Start with what, who, where, and why. Okay? So I'd like to encourage also for one question for one person, just ask one question so we can answer it correctly. So first question.
Good afternoon. Thank you for all those information. It's an eye-opening and quite disturbing as well. So this question is, again, my name is Adel. This question is directed to Attorney Jay Matokbaka. So regarding the uncle's tribunal decision way back in July 2016, recognizing the Philippine 200 nautical miles, how can the Philippine government enforce this legal framework? The uncles.
Well, like all international law, it depends really on compliance by the states, and compliance by the states is created not by a third party, which is what we usually expect. Sa domestic setting, pag may court, may judgment, it will be enforced by the police or the sheriff. There's no such police or sheriff in the international community. So it all depends essentially on the community as a whole. The equivalent of social ostracism, the equivalent of having difficulty entering into agreements with them because they don't trust you. So that's why what needs to be done and what we have been doing and what government is now doing is trying to get first other countries to support the Philippine position. And it has been progressing quite a lot, especially the past year. So many countries have come to the Philippines, mga ministers and visiting, offering assistance and also asking what they can do to help us. So that's being done. But of course, we're talking about China here, which is a major power that also has a lot of influence economically worldwide. Yeah, it's not easy, but it needs to be done. Also, we are basically implementing our rights, trying to implement our rights despite the interference of China. So recently we passed the Maritime Zone Act, which implements the maritime zones of the UNCLOS. That shows that we are following the decision, the judgment. And we're also getting a lot of collaborative, entering into a lot of cooperation activities with other countries to enable us to try to take care of resources and manage activities in this area in whatever way we can. despite the interference from China. So that's how we're trying to do it. Hopefully, over the long run, over period possibly decades, here definitely it's not going to be easy. Hopefully, China will eventually see that it's going to cause them more trouble than it's worth, and they should just follow the law instead of remaining an outlaw, especially when it comes to the sea. That's what we.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Jay. We'd like to hear a question for Dr. Deo on that. Do you have a question for Deo on that? We want to make sure that we're able to ask questions. Or to the other speaker. To the lawyer again, you're popular, sir. Let's give Sean is the lawyer.
Thank you for your very informative session. I was so irate while listening to you. And historically, I remember the past President Duterte befriended China, and that started.
Yeah.
It seems the Philippines is being bullied by China. My question is, how can we here in Canada help you, the three of you, in the problems that you have presented to us? Can we have an association, or can we write anybody? Now, the election in the United States is going on, and I was wondering if the United States is still helping the Philippines in several aspects.
Thank you so much. Well, there are many different ways to, one of the easiest and most basic is to spread the word. As I mentioned, China is also engaged in an information campaign to try to delegitimize and drown out the Philippine position. So it's coming up also as propaganda. And it's using its influence, especially on the internet and media, to try to dominate also in the narrative. So the only way to combat that is to have our people also participate in spreading the word, in, say, sharing the real stories of our fishermen, the positions that we've been taking, and the explanations that we've been giving, as much as they can. They have an organized army internally of people and bots to do this, but at least now, the current administration's effort has also been to invest in trying to push the Philippine position. So hopefully that effort, augmented by the citizens of the country, wherever they are in the world, that we have. It's not easy because, like I mentioned earlier, China's influence is worldwide. And I found out this recently, for example, that the videos I showed you, which are on YouTube, I just captured it from YouTube, they cannot be seen in Malaysia. Nothing of that comes out. That's why other countries always think Philippines is doing something, stirring up trouble. And they're very easily influenced by the Chinese position that we're the troublemaker. It's because of that censorship. And one way to try to combat that now is to try to keep spreading information to other things. So hopefully that will help. Another way is to also help directly efforts by organizations like so MSI, that we need to do scientific research, if we can help either the international contacts or to contribute funds, or, any way that will enable the Philippines in these institutions to do their job, to do what they need to do to try to protect our resources that we also have. And then our fishermen, if you have relations in Bustamante, you can confirm what is going on there. And maybe they will be able to tell you as well how you can help them directly to try to ride out these problems. That will at least help us maintain Filipino activities in the West Philippine Sea. Because that's really what's happening right now. China is pushing out all Filipino activities away out of the sea and forcing us out. That way, if they're the only ones there, they can do anything they want. So we want to prevent that. Um, and then talks like this, information sessions like this, are also very helpful because yeah, we need to get the word out. We need to tell people, especially our own people spread across the world, who may not be in touch anymore with what's happening at home. No? They may not have a home to return to in the future. Their children will not see the Philippines anymore if this keeps on going. So that's just some of the things that I think.
All right. So thank you. I'll give the microphone to Dr. Deo on that for your introduction or to add to it or final message.
Yeah, just to add, if you're actually looking ways on how to help, promote, and spread the word about the West Philippine Sea, one of the weaknesses that we have in the Philippines right now is that the narrative is very centric to Manila or to the national narrative. It's very difficult to find localized stories coming from the fisher folks, coming from the provinces. So majority of the news that you will be able to hear or listen to or actually reading are those coming from the spokespersons or agencies and all of those. What we want is to strengthen the narratives from the ground. Because these are the lived experiences, these are the experiences of the people that really affect them every day. So one way to do that is to strengthen also local journalism and local capacity to tell stories. There are different initiatives right now, different NGOs and different, even the DepEd in certain districts, to actually train their school journalists, to train local journalists, to collate stories about the West Philippine Sea from their own locality and tell those stories in their own language. Kung Bicolano kayo, tell it in Bicolano. If you're Pangasinense, you tell it in Pangasinense, Ilocano, and all of those. There are initiatives like that right now. Second is to have more materials ready for the kids. We need an entire new generation of Filipinos who actually appreciate better that we're Ekpilatsik, that we are maritime, and that the West Philippine Sea matters. And this starts from education in the school setting. There are a lot of educational materials, such as those what you're seeing there right now, actually put up by Mamaika by the embassy. A lot of those materials, children's books, educational materials books, that just needs to be printed and then distributed. Walang pera to actually distribute them, but materials are available, vetted and actually written with scientists, with academics, so the information are truthful, the information are accurate. If you're looking for certain causes that you'd like to support, these are some of concrete things that you can do. Third, actually, please, I think use social media. The narrative in the West Philippine Sea sometimes is very centralized in the Philippines. We need to penetrate the outside world or outside of the country social media. The algorithm needs to be amplified outside. Kasi sabi nga ni Sir Jay, sometimes they're being filtered. And a lot of Filipino bloggers, a lot of Filipino influencers, we have a lot of those in Canada and also in the United States. There's now a move, actually in the United States, in some of the communities, that they invite their bloggers, their influencers, to talk about local issues in their own channels. And that's one narrative, you won't believe it, grabe po ang following ng mga internet, yung mga diaspora at yung mga immigrants natin sa social media at sa YouTube. And you can use actually those avenues to amplify some of the issues. So all of us can contribute and all of us can actually do something about it.
Thank you so much. You know, just to piggyback on that, from a personal experience, I was born in a very small island, and a lot of our livelihood depends on the water. And every time there are typhoons or the seas are rough, the impact to the livelihood is really big. So that means that for a couple of days, you will not have food on the table. There would be no income for people living in the island. And just listening to the sharing today, how much more it's being taken away from you, that you can't fish or you can't do anything about it. So today, I think a lot of us came today without really expecting that we'll hear a lot of information. We don't have a lot of time, but we can continue the discussion. We can gather information. We can create forums on our own, in our own community, and continue to challenge and continue to advocate whatever issues and whatever we have heard today. We will be here. You can personally approach them, but we don't have time. So thank you for your participation, and thank you everyone Okay, but you know, the discussion never stops.
Yeah.
And our next plenary session is all about our identity. It's all about representation and visibility. So before we go to the next, I would like to call Chenlin Tan, our Vice President, and Mary Jane Napolitano, our host city for this convention.
All right, at this juncture, we would like to recognize the effort, of course, and the valuable contribution of our special guest speaker this afternoon. Truly that for me, when I heard her speaking, the key to successful leadership is influence. And as I see everyone nodding their head as she talks and making some interesting reaction, I could tell we're all influenced by her. I would like to give special recognition by giving this special certificate to our Honorable Maria Andrelita S. Austria here. Please, ma'am. I would like to read the text. It says here, the Filipino-Canadian National Congress FCNC awards this certificate of appreciation to Honorable Maria Andrelita S. Austria for the valuable insights, experiences, and expertise shared during the FCNC's third annual leadership convention and gala held on September 21, 2024, here at Victoria Inn Hotel and Convention Center, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Signed, Eddie Villata, FCNC President, and Jalen Tan, FCNC First Vice President. Maraming salamat. Again, let's give a big round of applause.
All right, so are you still there? You're still okay. I know that our last session is as exciting as what we have just heard this afternoon, because actually we can connect our discussion earlier to this next session. So it's all about representation. It's all about visibility. It's all about our identity. So pretty much we can still continue with the discussion as I call on our facilitator for this afternoon, Adel Bustamante. And we would like this to be as highly interactive. This will be an open forum type of presentation. I'd like to call on one of our panel speakers for this afternoon from Alberta. Let's give a big round of applause to Marietta Pangan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually taking a power pose as suggested by Senator Rosner because there has been so many excellent speakers. It's quite amazing. But I'm also thrilled to be amongst you because this is my first year at FCNC, and to be surrounded by the diversity of leaders, intergenerational, gender, age, regions, this is so amazing. And I feel like I belong so much, and I'm reflected in the rest of you. So this is really, really a thrill for me. Also, a shout out to Winnipeg, because they are going first. First of all, it's the first time I heard "Oh Canada" in Tagalog. That's so amazing. And secondly, is that way back in the early 1990s, Dr. Ray Pagtakhan was talking about representation before I even understood the whole concept of representation. So way to go, Winnipeg and Manitoba. Today's panel is about Filipino-Canadian demographics, contribution, representation, and identity. I think we sent you a presentation, but if you can't load it, it's fine. So we have a couple of panel members who are very, very active in their communities. You can look at their Facebook, it shows their level of contribution. I have put together a very, very brief introduction for them. But I think what's unique about me, because I cannot compare, I'm humbled by your contribution. What's unique about me is that My youngest son is now 21 years old. My oldest is 34, who works for Google. I always brag about that. They're, throughout their growing up, I have had about 8 Filipino nannies who came through my home because they were at risk of being deported. And they were able to finish their living contract in my home. So I think that's a very unique and really practical contribution to the community. As for our other panelist, Jerry Karingoy, sorry, Karingoy, you have already met him, he's the MC today. He is an award-winning public servant and presently serving as a finance leader for the city of Calgary. He is the regional director of Calgary's Employment Immigration Council, and he is also the creator of and contributor to Pinoy Kitchen, where he shares his passion for Filipino cuisine. And I share his passion for eating Filipino cuisine. We also have Marietta Pangan, who is a community servant leader. I mean, that is such an important description, a servant leader. Entrepreneur, columnist, content writer, a storyteller, and a pay it forward advocate and photographer, founder and president of the Filipino Arts and Culture in Alberta. So finally, oh, here it is. So I would like to open up this discussion by quoting Nick Joaquin, where he states, "Identity is the history that has come into bone and blood and reshaped the flesh. Identity is not what we were, but what we have become and what we are at this moment." And this takes me about like how we change as people. We change as we are daughters, as we are become mothers and become grandparents. And our community also changes. I shouldn't really play around with these pages. So when the data that is currently available is based on the 2021 data, but Statistics Canada is actually looking at developing more disaggregated data. And that means that we are going to be a separate group of people rather than being lumped in with other nations or other invisible minorities. And that's very important because it becomes very important in how we tell our stories. And what are the current stories that is just on literature? I'm not going to quote this. I'm not going to print it because these are just research that I have done. And this is what our community looks like. Based on the 2021 data, there is an increasing population for racialized groups. And there's increasing discrimination. But Stats Canada, as I mentioned, is looking at more disaggregated data. What is the current research? It shows that Filipino groups have a lower poverty rate than other racialized groups. But why is that? You have to dig deeper into it. And it's because within each household, there are actually more income earners in Filipino families than in other groups. What are the other numbers that are showing up? Filipinos were underrepresented in occupations requiring a bachelor's degree or higher. This is actually showing that Filipinos finish their studies outside of Canada and that they are overqualified from the state of application. So we're coming in as caregivers or migrant workers, and we're already overqualified from the start. Finally, Filipino students were far less likely than other groups to end in graduate or professional degree program within 6 years of enrollment in a bachelor's degree program. And why is that the case, you think? I think it's because we are more employable. And so it's easier for our young people to say, hey, I'm gonna get a job instead of continuing and studying. We also need way more data, as it came up today, about our seniors. What are their lived experiences? What are they experiencing? And this is very important because we need to collect this data at the local level. Because in the end, what gets measured is what gets prioritized. So we need to get our story straight. So I would like to turn to the panel now because the first question I have asked, I think what came up today in the discussion is that I think it was Councilor Marcus Chambers that said, we took the first leap into coming into Canada. So I wanted you to tell me a little bit about your journey into Canada and what shaped your worldview. But before we do that, I just also wanted to share, I came in Canada when I was 12. I was adopted by a Canadian. We were squatters, and about probably 20 years later, I bought the land that we were squatters in. And that shapes my worldview on why I reach back to the Philippines and contribute in Canada.
Okay, so the first question is, tell us about your journey into Canada and what brought you here and how has it shaped your worldview and how you define yourself as Filipino-Canadian. So there's a dash there, Filipino-Canadian. Okay, this question for me resonates well with everyone, with every immigrant here in this country. Something that many Filipinos who come to Canada, including myself, can truly relate to. So my journey to Canada began with a desire for better opportunities, right? Everybody would like to say that too, whether for personal growth, education, or career advancement. So much like many others, I was driven by the dream of creating a brighter future, not just for myself, but also for my family and the community I hold dear. So the transition from the Philippines to Canada personally has been very transformative experience for me. And living in Canada for the last 17 years, a country that is a multicultural society or country, has broadened my worldview, exposing me to a rich diversity of cultures. And this has fostered greater empathy, tolerance, and a sense of belonging to a global community. Yet, I remain deeply rooted in my Filipino identity. And if there's one person, maybe in the office or wherever I go, that is pretty much identified as Filipino, maybe I'm one of those, because I always show my Filipino-ness all the time, whatever I do, holding on to our traditions, language, and cultural values. So as a Filipino-Canadian, I come to define myself by blending these two worlds. And the value of bayanihan, the spirit of community that's central to the Filipino culture, is something I carry with me in every aspect of my work. That's why, having involved myself in a lot of community events, there's always that spirit of bayanihan that's really, at work. Even today, there's always that bayanihan spirit that is at work every time there is an event like this. And the spirit of community that is always present, of coming together and helping one another. And because of this, it has opened me to a lot of understanding about diversity and embracing a broader perspective, which has shaped my leadership and commitment to building bridges between two cultures. And in my case, as someone who has had the opportunity to contribute to the Filipino-Canadian community with work organizations like FCNC, the Filipino Champions of Canada, and immigrant serving agencies, I carry with me, this journey has profoundly shaped my identity and worldview. I've learned that being Filipino-Canadian is not just about navigating between two cultures. It's about celebrating best of both, finding strength in our heritage, and using that to uplift others.
Thank you, Jerry. You really prepared for that question.
He is not prepared. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariana. What made me come to Canada is all my orchestration. At the age of 10, I saw love flying plane while I was playing on the elementary playground, and I said, I'm gonna fly there and I'm going to see the world. But later on in life, I realized I have responsibilities to look after siblings and aging family members. So those are my two key initiatives why I came to Canada. And I came here by myself
Up until now, I'm still by myself. So 26 years after, I'm still a Filipino, no, Canadian of Filipino descent. Sorry to correct that. I always use the word Canadian of Filipino descent as opposed to the other way around because I do thrive in inclusivity and diversity. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria. And I think like what you have communicated with us is that it's important to always keep in mind as to why are we in Canada. And I think as we advance as a society, that reason of why we are here also changes. So the second question, because we want to kind of move really quickly through this, the second question is, what have you, what are, like, I think Jerry had talked a little bit about it, but maybe go into a little bit more detail about it. What are some initiatives that you have initiated in your own communities about telling our stories, about just representing and sharing our identity as Filipino Canadians?
All right. So 8 years ago, I founded the Filipino Champions of Canada. So in 2017, late 2017, we migrated here with my family. And my first event that I attended was a beauty pageant. And that was my first time to attend a beauty pageant that actually goes up to 2 a.m. in the morning. So then I said, wow, there's a community here. And that was my first time to be invited to such an event. And it's interesting that the lady who I was talking to 17 or 18 years ago invited me to actually host the pageant. And I said, what is that? You know, I've never watched a pageant. I never know what it is. And said, no, you just have to talk and just come over. And then I said, yes. But then after that event, I figured out that there must be something that, I need to know and need to share about my community. Whether in the workplace or in the community or the people that I meet along the way. And over time, I've realized that sometimes, as Filipino Canadians, we might be the only Bible that the other communities are seeing or are hearing from. So it's important that we tell our stories to the best of our ability. Our actions, our thoughts are reflective of who we are as people and as our community. So I founded this organization which is called the Filipino Champions of Canada. Even from the use of the word champion was also a challenge because even from our own community, when you use that champion, the word champion, that is such a big word. And sometimes people think that is like overbearing, like ang yabang naman, who do you think you are? But I think we need to champion ourselves because no one would champion us except us. And that is basically what I have started to advocate as the founder of the Filipino Champions of Canada. So we created this platform called the Filipino Champions Talk. What it is basically an open platform where people can come and share their stories. Because I thought that if we don't have this opportunity to be given by social media platforms or mainstream media, we should create our own platform. We should create our own stage where we can share our stories direct from our hearts. As a newcomer to Canada, I was invited by non-Filipino organizations, even government organizations, to share my story. And I thought, why are they interested about my story? Why I should tell my story about my immigrant journey in Alberta? Then I realized that that is a very powerful way of sharing your story to ensure that you will be visible and you will be recognized and you can represent yourself and for the rest of the community. So there I thought maybe, for us to continue to represent ourselves, we should create those spaces where we could stand and be proud of our heritage and be proud of ourselves. And that's why for many years, for the last 8 years, we have invited numerous speakers from our community and even from outside of our community because it has evolved into a multicultural platform where we can share our stories. And one thing that I've realized, that regardless of our color, regardless of our perspectives and our cultural differences, when we hear the stories of people coming to Canada, every one of us, everyone who shared their story, there's only one DNA. We may be different in our color, in the way we think, but our stories are the same. We have the same DNA. Therefore, as a Filipino-Canadian, sometimes our identity is being challenged. Sometimes for the last 17 years living here, sometimes I'm in the middle of between Filipino and Canadian. Sometimes I'm in a big meeting, and sometimes my Filipino brain is interacting with my Canadian brain. And that's a really difficult process to be in. But we can continue. We can continue to advocate for ourselves and to be able to experience what it is to be a Filipino, but at the same time, to celebrate our being Filipino-Canadian. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Yeah, it's about taking space. We have a right to tell our story and to be visible. And I think, Marietta, your work, especially with the more diverse, culturally diverse and society, is really good to talk about.
Thank you. For my experience and my view, I would always go for highlighting Filipino values. So in many shapes and forms, my patriotism and the Filipino patriotism among Albertans of Filipino descent are being highlighted through our work such as paying it forward. I always make sure that everybody understands paying forward is giving first, not giving back. Means someone already have given something to you, that's why you're returning a favor. Paying forward is giving it first and you don't expect anything in return. If it goes back to you, that is a bonus, right? So the kabutihang asal, ang pakikipagkapwa, starts with you. So if you want to be getting the respect that you needed or the value that you wanted, then be the first person to give that value to other person. That means you and I, she and him, and all of us are of the same heart, and therefore we're all equal. So racial discrimination diminishes because we give value to each and everyone, regardless of color or races, because there's only one race, and that is human race. Now, the other thing that I always highlight as well is exemplifying the bayanihan. And that means bayani, right? When you become a bayani, you just don't die for your country. You will also make sure that who you are will be foreseen, and having your qualities through collaboration, and this is where I try very much. I understand we have regionalism that is really given so much hurdle among Filipinos because oftentimes we become self-discriminatory. Iniiba natin yung sarili natin. Whereas when we become inclusive and when we understand diversity, then we provide a platform through collaboration. Means we also need a space kasi hindi naman po talaga tayo pare-pareho. If we understand that, then we will give each other a space. However, in a silent, assertive way of understanding, we as Filipino-Canadians or Canadians of Filipino descent can highlight who we are by providing first the example. Instead of magaling, we can reach out. We can start it first. We can initiate, or we can be able to, respect each other's differences. Di po ba? So yun po yung mga simple things and adding value to the community. What does it mean for us to add value? Means we already have something great. We are excellent people. We are one of the brightest people in the bunch, right? Pero how do we use that? We don't just show it off. We exemplify, we give, and we serve. And that's why I use the word servant leadership is because I initiate. Mahilig po akong makibawak, makisandok, makidawdaw, just so that I can share with you that kaming mga Pilipino, magaling kaming makisama. And that's how we initiate being Filipino. Thank you so much, Maria. And
it's important for us to know that we can build from each other's story. I mean, I think, there's the Black population and the indigenous population, because of their social history, is a bit more advanced in some of the initiatives that supports them. And I think, like Filipinos can definitely learn from some of those strategies that they have put in place. I'm going to skip the next question, and I'm going to ask the participants to actually, because I had asked if they were going to challenge you on what are you going to do at your local level and some of the best practices that you may have had in place. But I'm not going to put that in that spot. Instead, I'm going to ask you if you have any questions later for the panel, or you want to highlight some of the best practices. Now, some of you I know are very shy and wouldn't want to ask the question in person. You can write something and hand it to me, and we will try and make a collection of some of these best practices. But speaking of storytelling, oh, sorry, I have to ask our MC, is it okay if we go over by a few minutes? Thanks. Yeah. So one of the stories I want to tell you about how much our Filipino visibility has changed is that there's no embellishment in this story. This is all very real. In 1989, my ex-husband and I drove from Vancouver to Ottawa because he was offered a faculty position at Carleton University. We drove for 5 days, or actually 7 days, and there we didn't encounter any Filipinos. No Filipinos whatsoever. That was in 1989. There was no internet, there was no GPS, so it was quite a challenging ride. Now, 2 weeks ago, I drove with my daughter from Ottawa to Kelowna because she was offered to develop programs for marginalized and racialized youth in Kelowna, BC. This is what we encountered. In Wawa, we did not see any Filipinos. Anybody know where Wawa is? That's where the giant goose is. It's about 9 hours from Ottawa. But we were on the outskirts, so we did not expect that. When we were in Duluth, which is just outside of Kelowna, I went to a McDonald's because we were hungry, and the server was kind of rude to me because I wanted large fries instead of small fries. He said, "No, you already made the order." So I noticed the manager was a Filipina. So I said to her, "Is that true? I can't change my order." And she said, "Of course you can." And so she gave me free large fries. And then in Kelowna, we were served. As we entered the hotel, there were Filipinos serving us, and they were very helpful and acknowledged us as Filipinos. In Regina, we went into a hotel, again, welcomed by Filipinos. I went to another hotel because they had a better restaurant, again, welcomed by Filipinos, very, very warm. And then in Banff, as we walked through the center shops, there were Filipinos everywhere. And I remember way back in 1989, I couldn't consider going in those shops because I couldn't afford it. I couldn't go into those restaurants because I couldn't afford it. But it has changed. I mean, over 30 years later, I could have gone to those restaurants. I could have bought those clothes, but I chose not to. But there were Filipinos everywhere contributing to our economy. In Kelowna, when I arrived with my daughter, I wanted to fill up her freezer. And we went to Costco. Everywhere were Filipinos. So that just shows you that we are here, we are visible, and we are contributing to the economy. So I wanted to go back to you as participants. Do you have any best practices that you want to share with us, and what has happened in your local community in telling stories about Filipinos, about how your numbers may have changed, how your stories may have changed? Nobody? From Ottawa.
Hi, so my name is Madeleine. I'm from Ottawa. I'm also from the FCNC, which is a Filipino social enterprise. And I'm a funeral director for Arbor. So when I started working for Arbor a few years ago, I entered this company, and it's actually supporting different communities. When I was in training, I was in the ground and I see a Korean garden, a Chinese garden, a Buddhist garden. and then the Bahay Garden. And I said to my manager at that time, where's the Filipino Garden? Like, you hired me as a Filipino representative for the company, but why is there a Filipino Garden? And they said, why? How many Filipinos are there in Ottawa? I said, I don't know, but I know that everywhere I go, there's Filipinos. Every time I go to the church, it's packed of Filipinos. So I go to a restaurant, like Adel says, I go to Costco, I go to a grocery, especially when I go to a hospital, there are Filipinos. And he said, you're hired, we're gonna open a Filipino Garden. After that, my manager said, but I need 20 spaces to reach out to our headquarters so we can open the Filipino Garden in Ottawa. What I'm saying in particular right now, the garden is a cemetery garden, just so you know. It's not a garden with botanicals and flowers. It's a cemetery garden. Yes. Just to clarify it. So I reached out to the Filipino church in Ottawa, which is the Assumption Church, and I asked, I need help. In order for us to have our own Filipino cemetery in Ottawa, I need help from the community. I didn't even have to ask the second time. They said, yes, we'll help. In one day, I sold 30 spaces. A week later, the Filipino Cemetery Garden was established. It was something that is so important that I accomplished with the help of the community. The Filipino Garden is not there just because of me, but because it was needed by the whole community and they wanted. And my company, I'm very thankful with my company to be able to actually establish that for us. But it's not possible because we are just like 10. It's possible because we were united at that day. I was with my friend at that day, and she, my Rowena, and we were one voice. He said, Maddie, we want to have one. We were one thought in there that why not? So right now, 3 years later, their cases already have sold, and we are proud that no matter what happens, we are there to help every Filipino families who are in need at the worst time of their life. Because we are united as a community, and we are not just now majority, we are strong, and we have a voice, and even not just in like for the government, the city, but also in a company, a private company like my company.
That's awesome.
And who wouldn't want to talk to Madeline and I know she's just so charming. Anybody else?
There's someone over there that's raising his hand.
Hello, Filipino-Canadian National Congress. My name is Chris Casio. I ran for public office here in Manitoba for the city of Winnipeg for mayor, and probably the youngest Filipino male who has ever run in politics here in the city. But one of the things that I think I've learned, the actual local practices, is really relating to our relatives within different communities. I think earlier we were talking about how our communities always stuck within our own community. But I've learned that working with urban indigenous people in the northern Winnipeg, that our communities have so much similarities in terms of our histories, our values, and which is family. And I think of all of you, I may not know everyone in this room, but I know all of you are my relatives. And I just want to think about what family means is, I think what it means to show Canada what it means to be Canadian. It's about family. And I think, especially here in Winnipeg on Treaty 1 land, I think our relationships to Indigenous people helped me really figure out who I am as a Filipino. So, because there is a shared history about colonization, our shame of being Filipino, the lack of knowing my own history. And it wasn't until I engaged with our communities and different other communities that I've started to learn that our community is so powerful, and our communities could unite Canada. And I really encourage our community that our community is doing so much, and it took generations, but I think I'm so proud to be Filipino. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I didn't wait for Jerry to acknowledge me, but I'm gonna walk over there.
Sure.
Just so I can have more time to be recorded by that lady over there.
Chris on Tom in the house.
Yes. So, mabuhay to everyone. My name is Chris Onto. I represent Barangay Canada. I'm the co-founder of Barangay Canada. And I also wanted to include in this wonderful celebration of Filipino culture that aside from the thriving Filipino-Canadian community in Winnipeg, there are also other pockets of Filipino-Canadians here in the friendly province of Manitoba. I'm actually based in Steinbach, which is the third largest city here in Manitoba. Population 70,000. And the second largest, of course, is Brandon. So, I just want to bring greetings from Steinbach. I was previously the head of the Filipino Association over there. And unlike here in Winnipeg, where you have so many different Filipino organizations, you have regional organizations, you have professional organizations, in Steinbach, we're like a baby. There's only one Filipino association there. But eventually it will, it will grow and blossom into so many different organizations, much like Winnipeg. But what I wanted to share was that during my time as the head of the Philippine Association there, we started out kind of invisible. And now I'm just gonna do a cappella now. We started out being invisible in the community because even though Steinbach is labeled as a city, it's basically a small town. It's rural. There's no, like when we first arrived there, my first question was, where is the skyline? It's a city. Where's the skyline of the city? There's no skyline at all back then. That was in 2010. Anyway, so we didn't have, we weren't visible at all. But because of the Filipino Association, there's been 8 councils, 8 different iterations of the councils in Steinbach. Because of their collective efforts, we were able to change that situation for our kababayans in Steinbach. And how did we do it? We did it by breaking out of our shell. We tried to create linkages with the broader community. We made an effort to be involved in the community. In Steinbach, they have this summer festival. As you would all know, like throughout Manitoba, there's so many different summer festivals, and I'm sure in the different provinces as well. But more so here in the prairies. So we made sure we're involved. And one of the things that made us stand out in Steinbach is the food. And you can take a guess as to what it is. Kare-kare. It's actually our street food Filipino barbecue. There were long lines to our Filipino barbecue. It was a blockbuster. So everybody was looking for a Filipino barbecue. Even when they sold out, they would still line up and go to the front and say, like, as we were like putting our stuff away, like, do you still have any more? Sorry, but see you next year. So that's been our experience. But the important thing there is that that was the gateway for the local community to get to know us. Because they tried to learn about Filipino barbecues and then they learned about the culture itself. How do you prepare this? What kind of culture goes into this? What are the ingredients? Where do they come from? Where do they find them? And that's how the conversation started. That's how the conversation started. And before you know it, we have like 3 Filipino stores down in Steinbach. That was in a span of like 10 years since I started there. And that's because of the interest of the local community, the local population, about our culture. And they know so much about our karaoke, our karaoke culture. And they know that we're very good to singing, never to challenge us whenever there's a singing competition going on. So those are the things that brought us together with the larger community in Steinbach. And because of that, I think it's something that should also be emulated by our combined communities, especially those who are based in rural communities here, not just here in Manitoba, but throughout the country. So in closing, I would just like to thank the Filipino-Canadian National Congress for choosing Manitoba to have its third annual Leadership Convention and National Gala. And thanks to the sponsors and all the volunteers and everyone else who made this wonderful event possible. Thank you very much, and mabuhay po.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the panel and to all of you for your contribution. And again, write up if you have anything extra to say, pass it on to me. And I think it's very important to follow up on his points about start from where you're at. It doesn't mean you're going to be the same as Winnipeg. I mean, Ottawa is a big city, but we're not where Winnipeg is at. So start where you're at in your local community. I would like to kind of take a little bit more time to recite a poem that I had written for you. I had written for another occasion, and it kind of wraps up all the experiences that we have as Filipino-Canadians. So if you can humor me and give me another 6 minutes, I truly appreciate it. The poem is called Isang Milyon. There are 957,155 Filipinos from Bona Vista to Vancouver Islands. 2.6% of the Canadian population, second fastest growing. 3/4 were born in the Philippines, the rest in Canada. This land was made for you and me. 73% employment rate, 20.44% are healthcare workers. At the forefront of the pandemic response, amongst the most disproportionately affected. How do you measure the contribution of our people? Is it the 12,500 hours a Filipino nanny devotes to the first 6 years of someone else's child? Feeding, bathing, comforting, singing lullabies, holding their hand? Or is it the 52,400 hours of separation from her own child? Years later, when we united at last, how does she reconnect the broken bond between mother and child? Pagmamahal na ang kapatid ay maiiwanan. Is it the wear and tear on our bodies as personal support workers? Lifting seniors with dementia twice our weight and size. We are pushed and shoved, insulted and assaulted. We go home at night, our bodies ache, wincing with pain to climb to our bed. This we do day after day, no way out. Routine tasks slow the brain, past skills gone. Can't quit, pension not enough, non-existent. We cannot afford to grow old, although inevitable. Must we go back home, body used up, ready to die? These thoughts cross our minds as we hold a departing hand. Sino ang hahawak ng aking mga kamay? Is it the countless hours of research and analysis of Filipino public servants, from agriculture and agri-food Canada to women and gender equality, unseen, unrecognized, invisible, where decisions are made? Our evidence-based and well-grounded advice spoken by another, our rewards for a job well done bestowed upon the favored ones. What about equity, inclusion, and the power of diversity? Is it the expertise that we bring in as highly skilled professionals? Extra points on our application? Philippines established the institution. We pay the high price of money and intellect. Least of all, the daily 4-hour jeepney rides, sweat and dust, sleepless nights, and walking early dawn. Huwag kalilimutan ang sakripisyo ng aming mga magulang. Once here, we are told our experience matters not. Rejecting the training that forced us to be resourceful, innovative, MacGyvering our way through modern tools and enzymes in limited supply. Canadian professionals and students' lives, a luxury compared to ours. What about empathy? Recognize our lived experiences. We think the jobs no Canadians want are health and safety precarious at best. We go in remote areas, reviving towns on the brink of dissolution. The road to permanent residency lonely, long, uncertain, and costly. The weight of it all disintegrating our families. Hooray to Canadian Tire for the affirming commercial, a normalized occasion, a young couple announcing great expectation. This time I project myself on an elated mom when I hear in Tagalog, "Buntis ka?" I'm proud when I hear Mabuhay as Nina Aquino introduces a play at the National Arts Center, the performing arts pinnacle in the capital. One, a small step in representation, the other, a giant one. I can't wait to hear more of our stories, our unrecorded history across this vast land. My soul hungers to share who we are, holistic, collective, unfiltered, unleashed. In the streets, schools, and playgrounds, our children are confused when they are told to go home. Because this is the only home they have known. They do not have the patience that we have. They will not wait for a more inclusive society. They will challenge, they will fight, they will walk away. Sayang, Canada ang mamagitan. Separation from our families, being invisible, unrecognized, marginalized, the exhaustion of our bodies was a death known only to us. Unting-unting namamatay ang aming mga kalooban. Our mental health deteriorates and it's harder to come back. We reinvent ourselves, not in a good way, but in much less than we are. Our voices quieter, our dreams smaller. We suppress the anger and disappointment, replace it with a smile of sad surrender. We are already a million standing outside. Luzon City, 1,000,000 Dongranlu. 1,000,000 na po kaming naghihintay, peeking through the window, our foot wedged at the door. We can almost feel the warm embrace of inclusion. Open the boardroom doors, we want to come in. Buksan niyo po ang mga pinto, pasukin niyo kami. We want to be in a room where it all happens. We want to sit at the table. Our voices heard, our contributions recognized, our beautiful minds celebrated. 1,000,000 cannot be ignored. 1,000,000 cannot be invisible. Handa na mga kababayan, ipagtanggol ang ating kinabukasan.
We will call. All right, that concludes our session for this afternoon. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Adel from Ottawa, Adel Bustamante, another big round of applause, and to my fellow panelists here, Maria Takmaan from Alberta. Thank you so much. Okay, we now come to the end of this convention. To close us, I'd like to call on our second Vice President from Ontario. Let's give a big hand to our technical guy, Mr. Ronnie Calacana.
Thank you, Jerry. It's my first time to do technical at the same time. Yeah, so I think our organization is growing, so next time I will commit that we will build a team. Obviously, technical things. But anyway, to close this evening, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and valued delegates, as we reach the end of this inspiring and impactful day, I'm filled with deep sense of pride and gratitude. Our annual leadership convention under the theme Strengthening Community from Coast to Coast to Coast has been resounding success. And I thank all of you for attending this event. Today we have witnessed the power of unity. I heard so many times the word collaboration as we gathered from all corners of vast diverse nation of Canada, from enriching keynote addresses, insightful panel discussion, and interactive discussion. We've seen that all day. We have explored how we can strengthen our community and build bridges across the country. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our keynote speakers, Kevin, and the rest of the dignitaries from the Ambassador's Office. Senator Gigi, I think is still here. Your words have not only enlightened us, but we have also ignited a renewed sense of purpose in our collective effort. Your expertise and experience have provided us with a tool and inspiration needed to tackle the challenge ahead. Our dedicated organizing team, led by Janeline and volunteers, your hard work has made this event possible. Your attention to details and unwavering commitment have ensured seamless and memorable experience for everyone involved. Thank you for your kindness and effort planning and obviously executing this memorable event. And to all the delegates, your enthusiasm and active participation has been a driving force behind today's success. Your contributions and insights are invaluable, and they reflect the strength and vibrancy of our Filipino community. It is your engagement that will help us to build together more connected communities from coast to coast to coast. As we conclude today's event, let us remember the powerful conversations and shared ideas were experienced. Let us take the lesson learned and the connection made and apply them to our effort in our own community. So together, we can create meaningful changes and continue to uplift and support one another. Thank you once again for your presence and passion and all your commitment. Safe travels, everyone, for those who are not attending today's gathering. Mabuhay and God bless.
This is Tinig Pinoy.
Tinig Pinoy. Tinig Pinoy.
Bye, Adel. We're good. It's the end. We'll resume later.